the TFNB Your Bank for Life studio. Now, it's time for the Smoak Show. Presented by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your bank for life, serving Central Texans since 1889. It's time for the Smoak Show on 365 Sports with David Craig and Craig Smoak. From the TFN.
Hello, there we go. On set, 365 Sports, TFNB Bank for Life studio. David Craig Smoak with the patented Rangers hat and the hoodie. And good afternoon. The ACC with their media days today. And Craig Smoak, thank you very much. As always, appreciate it. I thought Jim Phillips actually sounded like a commissioner. Of course, Brett Yormark had depends on how you look at it last week when he was asked questions when he was on the stage. I thought Jim Phillips today was emphatic. And the ACC is doing really, really well right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to hear what you have as examples for why you think that, other than just he stood and commanded the podium well. I mean, I know he dove into their tiebreakers, which has a lot of people talking, and there's some other topics that we can explore here. But, yeah, I didn't see anything today and really have that same reaction as you did. So I'm interested to hear of where you're coming from with that. But yes, ACC media days are underway and will be underway for the remainder of this week. So we got the dose of the Big 12 and all that came with that a few days ago. And hard to imagine it's already been a week since we were there. Actually, today was our last day there. So it's crazy how time flies, even in just this short little window here. But for the ACC, you got Florida State today. You had Miami today, NC State, Stanford, and Virginia. And so they go over the course of 3 days, spreading out their teams. And so that's who you have tomorrow, another batch of schools. And then on Friday, they'll close it on out. But I mean, what made you say that to start off with the show today, that Jim Phillips was commanding that commissioner's role?
Well, I just felt like the conference, the ACC, remember that we knew 1 or 2, 1A, 1B, whatever, with the Big Ten and the SEC. We knew that. They have separated themselves where they are. But there's always been kind of the debate, especially after when realignment occurred, when Texas and OU left, the ACC, it appeared a couple of different years they were somewhat shaky. The amount of money they were making was better than sometimes reported, but I just felt like he was in control. I like his answers. Let's get to we'll get to that. The tiebreaker thing we will discuss in just a moment. Here is the power poll for the ACC. Of course, the 17 teams with Stanford down at the bottom at number 17. This is from the ACC TV network. And here is the power poll to start it out with Miami, the defending champions, even though they did not win the championship last year, but went on to play for the national championship at number 1. And look still at 15, where Florida State is down in the gutter, according to at least this power poll.
Yeah, that's an interesting looking poll. I mean, right off the top, I think there's some things that need to be explained, and I guess they're explained maybe by just enthusiasm around coaching changes, particularly in the case of Virginia Tech. I guess just a lot of people on board right away with James Franklin and what they're going to be doing there in Blacksburg. But, yeah, Miami seems to be the pretty easy choice this year. I can see where you'd dangle the thought of SMU. I think that they're a very much a legit contender this year. Clemson, I'm intrigued by. Georgia Tech's got a lot of turnover, just that post-Haynes King era. There's a lot of question marks there. And there's a lot of question marks about a lot of these teams in general. There's definitely not a grouping of teams. There is a Miami and then maybe an SMU who I think of, but really interesting to see Louisville getting a lot of love there at number 2. Jeff Brom, there's the feeling that they've got like a lot of talent that's on that roster right now. So hit that transfer portal hard, and very excited about kind of the buzz that's building for them. So between the Cardinals and then the consistency of SMU and then the newness of Virginia Tech, there's kind of a new look there near the top. But Miami, yeah, they reign supreme, I think, is the obvious choice here to start off with.
More from Mario Cristobal in just a moment, but let's do that. That's the power poll. And then I looked at that. I was like, damn, they got a lot of teams. Of course, the Big Ten does too, and the SEC, and of course, Big 12 with their 16. So there we are with that. Now, let's go from the power poll to what then became a talking point initially when ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips mentioned the new tiebreaker rule. There are 3 procedures here to decide. Remember last year they had a controversy on who was going to play, the tiebreaker. Miami was not even a part of that, but yet again, they made the playoff as they deserved and earned eventually, earned and then deserved. Head-to-head results, that makes sense. No team will be overly rewarded or penalized based on the number of conference game it plays. So in other words, if you play 9 or somebody else played 8 or whatever it is, you're not going to be dinged for that. And then this one here, I didn't really see this until Brett McMurphy. I saw this. When head-to-head competition cannot separate tied teams, the team with the strongest, oh dear God, overall body of work will earn the opportunity to compete for the ACC championship and the conference's automatic qualifier to the college football playoff.
Yeah, that's had a lot of people talking today, and I think it's something that is obviously a very hot topic coming off of last year and just how all of that went. You knew that they were making changes. You just didn't know exactly what that was going to look like. And, yeah, I think that just on the surface can be something that's a bit of a lightning rod because you're leaving it up to some type of a formula, and that can get kind of squirrely. And what exactly is that made up of? A lot of legitimate questions about how that's calculated. I know they've got a separate entity that's doing that. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like there's stuff that happens and people just react to it and they don't even process it. So with this, I look at it and I say, okay, head-to-head matters. All right, that's number one. Good. That's the best way to do it. Okay, you're not going to overly reward or penalize on number of conference games. You can't because it's not even because you have a conference that has an uneven number of teams. So that's just
in
logical.
other words, if one team is 8-1, the other team is 7-1. 8-1 will not trump 7-1.
Right. So then I would ask for everybody who's and everybody's like maybe 3 people online, but for people that are like, what the hell is it? Like, I mean, what else are you going to do other than have a formula? I mean, I'll leave it up to the math experts out there on what the better method to do was, but we saw what the old method did, and it created a messy situation for them a year ago that they were fortunate. Miami just played so well enough in the playoff that we just kind of forgot about that whole ACC debacle. So if you're doing head-to-head and then they don't play the same number of games, well, it stands to reason you're going to have some kind of a formula or something that's going to be able to separate them. So right. I can see questioning said formula or being curious about it, but I don't know what you would do otherwise with the unevenness that you have and head-to-head already being factored in. So. All
right. Well, here's something else that Jim Phillips mentioned. This is not on the graphics or anything. On the third tiebreaker, first of all, they got them. Seriously, body of work, that goes back to the original start of the college football playoff in 2014. It will come down to body of work, and then that wasn't it. Who you play, when you play, very subjective, and then the non-conference and conference games will matter. How in holy hell can you decide a conference championship or tiebreaker by going outside of the conference games that you play? So in other words, let's say somebody beats Auburn and somebody else might beat Wisconsin. I don't know. But you don't need to use games outside of the ACC or any conference to decide who plays for the conference championship. That is at least my opinion.
I agree with that, and that's where you see why there's a kind of a polarizing opinion on this tiebreaker. But I would ask you, what is your better option? So, again, you could go to then common opponents. Okay, well, you don't have the same number of common opponents, most likely, because of, again, the fact that the conference is unbalanced. So you can't just do the logical things after head-to-head that a normal conference would be able to do. It's one of the pitfalls of this whole realignment that's only stands to be even messier in the future if the big gobble up more of the small that are, or not even gobble up the small, but the big gobble up the remaining big that are still swimming with the small, then this is going to be even more so a crazy kind of thing. But yeah, you could do common opponents. I guess you could do what else out there to try and.
Well, they already have this in the tiebreakers, but they don't look like they're not leaning on this. The league will use power ratings provided by Sports Source Analytics. That's it. You do the conference record. You can't award an 8-1 team over a 7-1 team unless there's a head-to-head difference. And if it gets anywhere else after that, you go to the Sports Source Analytics, but you ask that particular company only analytics involving the schedule and who played and the results within the ACC. That's my opinion. To me, it's over. And if one team, I don't even know what it is, a 0.82 compared to a 0.75, then that team gets the tiebreaker win.
I'm not so sure that's not probably what they do, and then they have to eventually go to the non-conference games as a way to just finally get to the end of it is what I'm assuming, and I may be assuming wrongly there. I don't think that they go head-to-head and then, oh, here's this formula, and the driving factor is the teams you played outside. I totally understand where your complaint's coming from, because when you initially look at it, you go, why would non-conference opponents and that kind of thing start to matter? But it is teams that you played, whether it's conference or non-conference. So at some point, you've got to figure out a way to break the teams up. So if you can't have a balanced schedule and you don't have a round of common opponents, then yeah, you default to this company that you hired to break the tie. And they ran 10,000 simulations. They didn't just create this last night and say, here we go. They've done a lot of legwork on ensuring that it makes sense. Now, we'll see. I'm not saying that it's the greatest idea ever. I'm not saying I even totally agree with it. I'm just not trying to react too extremely to something that maybe just reads poorly. But it does read poorly when you start to go, okay, it sounds like they're just sort of throwing some weird things in here. For example, when you play, like that comment probably should have been left out of the press release, because then that makes you raise your eyebrows and go, what do you mean when you play? That is kind of silly. Who you play, why would we balk at that? It's absolutely about who you play. Like, yeah, so who you play should matter. So that makes sense. Your body of work, yeah, that should matter. That should make sense. Oh, well, it's a computer determining it. Well, how else do you want to determine it unless you want to do the human way? So body of work makes sense. Who you play makes sense. Your non-conference games should matter less than your conference games. But if your conference games are all the same, then what else could matter other than your non-conference games?
But if all your conference games are the same, that means that you're talking about, but if they did not play each other.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to be the same, most likely, because they're going to have different schedules. They're not all playing the same 9 teams. They're playing a different mixture of teams.
Clarification, Craig. Sports Source Analytics, part of what they're doing is using the body of work and all that other stuff. My whole point is you do not need to go outside the conference with results to decide who wins the conference. You can't do that. You just, I mean, they can. It's their conference, but I don't understand how anyone would want, for example, a random game against Troy or a game against Rutgers to be a part of deciding who's going to win the tiebreaker to play for the conference championship.
I guess we're kind of just talking over each other here, because I just said the body of work. Yeah, that does matter. That's exactly what I was just saying, is that's what you would base your opinions on a team off of. But at some point, when you've done head-to-head, when you've done common conference schedules, right? When you've done body of work, when you've done all the logical things that you can typically differentiate teams from, you eventually have to have a tiebreaker. So I don't know if it is better if the humans did it, but they're just using a computer formula to say.
This is no different than going back to 2008 when Oklahoma and Texas and Tech had a 3-way tie for the South Division, and OU got in with the BCS rankings.
Right.
That's how you do it.
Yeah, and they tried to do that last year, and it turned out to be a big old mess where their team didn't get in. This is okay, so let me explain it to you. This is how they want their best team to get in. This is the way to get their best team in. Not some flimsy 3-way tiebreaker that maybe doesn't get the best team in. They had a debacle a year ago, an absolute mess.
Yeah, they did.
So when you have to then go and change your tiebreaker rules, this is where I think we're kind of talking over each other here. You go by the typical methods. You're head-to-head. Okay, well, if you don't play, well, then you can't do that. your body of work. I don't know why that would be controversial, because it's about who you play, right? Who's most deserving? Who did you beat that was worthwhile? What ranked teams did you beat? What common opponents do you have? All that's absolutely normal. Then at some point, though, if all those things are equal or they're unequal and they can't be judged fairly, you have to do something. So I don't see how hiring a computer company and running 10,000 simulations is really all that different or worse than having some just rule in your tiebreaker book. This is the rule now. Like, that's the tiebreaker, is that this computer company says, well, we got this Miami here, and we got Duke here, and we got Virginia here, and we can't break this tie on this level, and we can't break this tie on this level. So how do we break it? Well, we put all this information together and it breaks the tie. I just don't see what the big deal is about that, because you have to eventually crown somebody, and it's just a way to do that is down the line of the typical, more traditional methods. So
here's what the College Football Playoff Committee, when they use the term body of work, the body of work it goes beyond the win-loss records to evaluate how a team performed on the field over the course of the year, providing flexibility to reward teams that challenge themselves with difficult non-conference schedules or those that show significant on-field improvement as the season progresses.
It sounds like they're trying to find the best team. Like, I mean, the strongest body of work is the best team.
The way they use that, and probably what soured me, is when they used that for 4, 5, or 6 years in the college football playoff, it seemed like body of work changed from year to year. It seemed like one year they would use it, the next year they talk about game control.
Okay, but that's Jeff Long representing Arkansas and talking about the entire country. This is the ACC talking about their own teams and trying to crown their best champion. There's not like any sort of like backstabbing going on here. The league's just trying to not end up in a mess like they did last year. And so once you get past, again, head-to-head, okay, head-to-head, that solves it. Oh, you don't have head-to-head. Okay, we go to the next thing. And then you go to the next thing. And if that doesn't work, eventually you get to a point where, again, I don't know, you have to break the tie. So if the body of work is going to ensure that Miami would get in over your old tiebreaker that would have had Virginia in, even though everybody would have scoffed at that, well, that you see where the ACC is trying to game the system because they want the best team to be in the playoff. I guess you can disagree on how they get there, but they're trying to make up for last year.
Yeah, no, I get what they're trying to do from last year. That's why that's one of the first things they discussed. But I don't know if I can trust the committee, or in this case, whoever's going to decide all of this.
The computer.
Okay, but you're still feeding the computer with human eyeballs, right?
Okay, yeah. I mean, sure you are, but you're feeding it just information and saying unbiased to come out and say on the other side of who the best team is.
There's 17 teams. Let's say 3 teams end up 8-1, and for whatever reason they didn't play each other. What you normally do is, okay, did any of them play each other? Did you win? You're in.
Okay, they're doing that.
All right. Secondly, okay, then you have the other 2 teams that are the other one's not out, but the other one can still be as good as or better than the team that did not play in that common game. So then don't you just go to records of what is your record against the next best team in the conference? Did you beat Duke? Yes, no. To me, it goes way beyond getting to the point where you start talking about body of work. Body of work to me can be subjective. That's my point.
Yeah, it can be subjective. I don't know. I guess there's better ways to do it, and they can figure out whether or not this works well or not. I think that it's just pretty self-explanatory. I don't have any really big controversial take on this tiebreaker. I think that you just ultimately have to come up with a system, and yeah, we can poke everything apart and say, well, wouldn't this be better? Well, clearly they would do that if that was possible, but you have an odd number of teams. You had an odd situation last year. I don't think that, going off of when teams play, I think the wording was a little bit. Are you saying something?
Yeah, I was typing something into one of the persons asking me about what we're talking about.
Okay, well, so I just think that this is, I guess, going to be controversial, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty straightforward, but I can see where some of the wording maybe is confusing to people.
Maybe it'll be just better no matter how much it still seems to be subjective, because I don't want subjective. I want it to be down to who wins.
Subjective would be having a human committee sitting there deciding. Not subjective is a computer just saying, here are numbers. I don't know the team names. I'm just telling you based on these numbers that you all find relevant. here who the best team is. It couldn't be less subjective. Now, I guess it's subjective from the standpoint of the information you put in. But again, this isn't the ACC trying to sneak another playoff team in. They're simply just trying to decide who plays in the damn game and nothing more. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. Maybe it's not perfect, but they had to do something to address it. And maybe we'll see at the end of the year that Miami got screwed over because of the second or third tiebreaker, and then they decided to change it again. But until I see it in practice, I mean, it seems pretty straightforward. And I guess there's always better ways to do things, but just looking at it and just going, oh, that sucks. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't have that feeling about it.
All right, let's discuss what else is good for the ACC. Because right now it appears, and I don't have all the numbers in front of me, but it appears they're the third most highly revenue earning conference. Jim Phillips saying that the league exceeded $900 million in revenue, because we talked about the billion plus of the Big Ten and the SEC. Last year, 7th consecutive year. This, to me, for a conference that had been dinged, for a conference that looked like it was fragile, and I think at times it probably was, 7th consecutive year, its increased revenue has doubled since just 6 or 7 years ago from when it was $455 million. That's pretty damn good. That's good money as they continue, because it's still not where they need to be or want to be. But they have weathered the storm when it comes to infighting with North Carolina and Florida State and whoever else, Clemson, and they're making more money now than ever before.
Yeah, that's great news for them in the current. And let's stay in the present and just talk about the ACC for what it is. I think that's great news. And yeah, they're pretty clearly the third best based on the money side of things. I think we've had plenty of people on that would still say the Big 12 is the better overall football conference. If you're talking about per team, or if you're going pound for pound, I guess is the phrase I was looking for. Yeah, pound for pound, maybe the Big 12 is better, but ACC had the more impressive team last year with Miami and the deeper run, and they made more money. And so, yeah, they're in a much better spot than they were about a year ago when everybody was declaring that they were going to lose teams. And yet there's Florida State still sitting in the ACC, and there's North Carolina still sitting in the ACC, and there's everybody else that was they're leaving is still in the ACC now.
And,
are they going to still be there in a year or two? I mean, that's the question mark. I mean, the ACC, yeah, they're healthy. They're healthier than they've been in a couple of years. They're making good money for what you'd expect. It's certainly, again, not near the top two, but they're not going to be anytime soon unless Miami goes and wins a national title, and then Florida State goes and does something similar, or Clemson or whatever, and you have to build that body of work to really close that gap. And even then, I don't know how realistic that is, but at the same time, it could be a lot worse. So, yeah, I think they're rolling into media days feeling about as confident as they have in 2 or 3 years, and feeling like they've got a national championship contender in Miami and maybe a couple of others that can make some noise. And certainly, it's a league where it all just rides on this uncertainty of what's coming up on the horizon. And until we get past 2030 and we see for sure, it's going to be lingering out there. But it could be worse. They could actually have teams leaving right this very moment. They could have had no team playing for the national title last year. So they can't answer the big question in the room that is creating whatever instability there is. But in the meantime, they've done a good job of kind of just keeping people out of the public as far as talking goes, and kind of settling that story down in the meantime, while also having some success. So, yeah, they've been in much worse places here recently. I still think there's a lot of work to do and a lot of questions to be answered, but they're doing okay for themselves right now.
Yeah, they really are. And somebody asked, and I don't know the answer to this, about how much of that Notre Dame money is involved in the $900 million, because they do get obviously revenue from the ACC for what they do when it comes to football and also basketball. Meanwhile, if you look at their viewership, despite all of this, and with Miami making a run, even with Florida State, by the way, Rez, can you go back to the power poll that we had from the beginning, the image, if you don't mind, of the 17 teams? This is what I wanted to show. The teams that were complaining the most: Clemson, Florida State, even North Carolina was a part of that. 8th, 15th, and then 13th. Now, that's what the predictions are, the power poll for this year. But they have not been carrying their water. We know what's happened to Florida State since the horrible situation losing Jordan Travis. and not playing for the national title. But the ones that wanted more, and they have that tier now of what you do, you get more. The ones that wanted it, and the reason they did that, for those who asked for it, they're not carrying the water. And so that's something I wanted to bring up when I saw the power poll.
Well, that's not entirely true, because Miami was also one of those barking, and they're doing just fine for themselves.
They were, but it was mainly both Florida State and Clemson leading the way.
Well, I'd say more so North Carolina as well than just those two. So yeah, more so those three. Miami, maybe not as much, but Miami, it's no secret there. Look, everybody in every league is looking, other than the teams in the SEC and the Big Ten. That's just like, we can just say that. We've already said that plenty of times before, but let's just acknowledge that one more time, that if you're in any league that's not those leagues, you're looking around. So yeah, I think Miami is a team that feels really good about their spot in the big picture right now. I know there's been talk for 3.5 years at this point about them in the Big Ten. And I'm sure that's probably something that we could see here in the next 3 or 4 years. But yeah, they're carrying their weight. But to your point, the rest of the teams, not so much. I mean, I will say though, you can't go off a power poll in the preseason and say, well, they're not handling their weight because Wes Bryant ranked them 15th. I mean, they're not handling their weight because they've sucked for a couple of years now.
I said that's the poll, but I wanted to bring up that Florida State has not been doing anything since the Jordan Travis drama. But they've still done more, even in the last couple of years being what they were. They've still done more and played for more in their time than most every other team on this list. So the brand still has some cachet to it. But yeah, it's not at its best right now. And the fact that you even see them considered for 15th out of 17th is just embarrassing, and a sign of just how far they've fallen in a very short amount of time under Mike Norvell. But it's not like the brand is dead. They're trying their damnedest to kill it, though, based on just decisions I see even Florida State leaders making. So something does need to change for them. But all it takes is a little bit of winning, and that spark comes back pretty quickly. But yeah, it's funny. It's humorous to see FSU being the loudest in the room, as they were a couple of years ago when things were going well, all of a sudden slinking to the back of the room as far as the teams that you're preparing to think will be better in football or be your best teams in football. That's pretty shocking. I don't know if anybody would have predicted that a couple of years ago. So yeah, they've got to get better quick, or they're obviously just going to fire Mike Norvell this offseason, and that will be how they turn things around. UNC, I don't think that football power was ever a reason why they were talking trash or explaining their side of the story and why they needed to explore and maybe leave. That never had anything to do with football success to begin with, so I don't think that really matters for them so much. But yeah, Clemson just being in the middle, it's very interesting today to see, where I know people are very high on Alabama going into this season, but just these last couple years, see Clemson not be nearly formidable compared to what they were, and to see Alabama still be better than most, but nowhere close to their best. It's been a big departure from just kind of the stranglehold those two programs in particular had on the sport a few years ago, but also refreshing in a lot of ways as well to see some other faces kind of take those spots. So yeah, Dabo's got a lot to prove. And kind of shocking to see them, I mean, behind Wake Forest is just sort of crazy. But Miami's in really good shape. UNC, it's not even about football for their bravado. And FSU, that's just a mess that I know is just bursting at the seams when it comes to the amount of pressure that's on Mike Norvell right now. They can't withstand much more. We will look at what they call the hot seat. I know that's easy to have. We'll do that later in the show. And there's a rating system, like from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, all the way up to 4.01 to 5. And the number of coaches that are in that category from 4 to 5, who are they? And what's the order between, I think, like 1 to 6 or 7? We'll have that later on in the show. But you're right, the hot seat in Mike Norvell, he actually discussed that earlier today. Also, this is another part of the ACC that is pretty damn good. They will play 25 games this year against Power 4 opponents or Notre Dame, which leads all the conferences in America. Every ACC program will play at least 10 games against Power 4 opponents, and 3 of the nation's 5 teams that will actually play 11 Power 4 games are from the ACC. So the money's climbing steadily, more than ever. The viewership is better than it's been, up 68%. They have a couple of the new blood, like Miami's back in the mix, and they're trying to fix up how whoever plays for the championship or plays or represents the conference. So they got a lot done. And then this right here, I know all conferences will not agree to do this, even though now we see the ACC and the SEC playing an extra conference game starting this year.
Yeah, I mean, this is good to see big schools playing big schools and definitely having a nice solid resume that you've been tested. You're not sitting there trying to find 3 automatic wins and then pretend like that's the same as Texas going out and playing Ohio State and trying to actually measure those resumes. So, yeah, the more power teams you can play, like there's part of me that wants you to still carve out at least a game, everybody a game for Appalachian State or Alcorn State or whoever, as much as, yeah, you don't care to show up in 100-degree heat and watch a 90-0 beat down type of scenario. Every once in a while we get some entertainment out of those types of games, and it's a great opportunity for those schools and much needed finances. So I hope that doesn't go completely to the wayside, but it does feel like we're getting pretty close to where the entire schedule is just going to be power teams playing power teams. Like we're not far off from that at this point. But I'm glad to see the ACC's holding their own when it comes to the types of teams that they're playing. And so that bodes well for if they get into conversations at the end of the year about strength of schedule and how many Power 4 teams did you play and those types of metrics. They should all stand to be in pretty good shape for whoever might be getting judged on that. And Notre Dame, I did see, I went and Google while you're asking, their money does not count towards the ACC based on what I saw. So Google could always be wrong, but Notre Dame's football money is their own, and that does not factor into the ACC. Yeah. So I guess that's maybe even better for the ACC that they have made more money and it doesn't even count Notre Dame. But yeah, that's not the same pot. So yeah, good. They're playing good teams. And I think every team in America that's a quote unquote Power 4 should play the same amount of Power 4 teams. I just think it should be the same across the board. I know it'll weigh heavier that 10 SEC games is more than 10 Big 12 games or 10 Big 10 games or more than 10 ACC games or whatever. Like those conversations are never going to completely go away. But I do think we've seen some real obvious scheduling disparities here lately where you do have teams playing nobody and then other teams are playing like Ohio State in the non-conference. And that's a pretty big damn difference. So not everybody can play Ohio State, but try to play Minnesota, try to play Purdue, try to play somebody. Don't just try to go get an easy win.
That doesn't mean that some of the FCS or the group of 5 teams aren't able to beat you, because that's the reason why a lot of them are in the mix and want more. So it's not like they're a cakewalk, but you actually then, and I want the FCS and the group of 5s to be able to play the power schools for the money. And a possibility if they actually win, then who knows what that might mean to them too. It comes to recruiting or even sneaking in. And I hate to say sneaking in, but being a part of the team that gets in to the college football playoff. Here is, you want to add?
Do you have anything on what he said about realignment, the brief
right
couple
here.
quotes?
Yep,
okay.
Yep. Jim Phillips. And again, it's part of the, like an overall, like I made pizza last night and I put different ingredients in it. All of us. This was, to me, Jim Phillips spinning and adding ingredients to a pizza. Let me tell you something. There are times when he's looked and sounded weak or confused. Here's one other thing. He was asked about the future membership. And this is about conference realignment. This is about the ACC. Are they going to lose anybody? I've said this multiple times, Phillips said. I want this to be a place where schools want to be, not have to be. So I'll leave it at that. I want people to want to be in the ACC, not forced to be in the ACC. Good for him. I don't know what that means for anybody, if they care what he has to say, but I like the way he said that and came back with that particular answer.
Yeah, I don't know what else he could say really that would be any better than that, but it does sound like the guy who's about to lose his girlfriend is like, well, I only want somebody who wants to be with me. And while that is true, and while that is very valid, and that's how you should feel, you shouldn't want somebody that doesn't want you. Like, we kind of know how that looks, right? It's like, you still do want her, but you're kind of having to like save face a little bit because she doesn't really want you. And so that's how this reads to me. Like Jim Phillips wants Miami and North Carolina and Clemson and Florida State, but he also knows there's a very real chance they don't want him and they're going to leave. So, well, I only want you if you want me to kind of thing here. But again, there's not really a better thing he can say. He can't challenge them and tell them, I dare you. Go ahead, make my day, pal, because they will, and they're going to at some point, most likely. And he can't beg and plead for them to stay because that would just look pathetic and probably not make a damn bit of difference in their decision-making. So, yeah, you kind of have to go the route of we'll be as good as we can with who we have, and we want people who want us, and we want teams that want to be here. And you can read through that pretty easily and figure out, well, it sounds like some teams don't want to be, but it's obvious there's teams that don't want to be because they've been crowing about it for 2 years. I mean, we know them. They've been public about it. So this is the part where everything's feel good and, oh, we've figured out our tiebreaker, even though there's some controversy about body of work and the language of it and all that. I don't think it's as messy as it appears to be. I'll be gladly proven wrong months from now if that's the case. But I don't think that there's anything super controversial about that. I think, boom, you checked off a to-do list that was obviously very front and center with the tiebreaker being as in the conversation as was last year. So that's positive. You're making good money. That's positive. But then there's this realignment piece, and that's the part that you can't shake. And that's why no matter how much TV money you're making or whether you figured out your tiebreaker and you're going to have the best possible champion moving forward, no matter kind of how things used to work, that's all well and good, but there is this that's hanging over their head, and it's going to continue to hang over their head for the next 3 to 4 years until some moves are finally made. So you make the best with it that you can, but this does read like they're sort of writing on the wall, and that he knows that like there's not really anything they can do about it other than just ride this storm. And you hope maybe the environment leads to teams that you thought were definitely out, maybe sticking around because of the way things go in the next couple of years. But you can only do the best with what you have, and you can't worry about what's going to happen 5 years from now. If you're Jim Phillips, you got to worry about 2026 first and foremost. So, again, not really much you could say different than this, but that is looming over them as far as like really wanting to latch on and say they're built for the future. Like you can't say that.
Of the 4 Power 4 conferences, and of course Notre Dame's a part of this mix, but they're the ones that seem to have more people who want what they have. Not everybody, but if you look at the Big 12, with all due respect, we love the conference, cover the conference. Right now, I don't know how many people are nibbling like you would with a Florida State, despite how they've been down, or Clemson, or even a Miami. We got a break to come back with a guest. We got a couple of 3 guests today. Go ahead.
I would say the big difference is that the SEC or the ACC has multiple teams that both the SEC and the Big 10 would want and be interested in, and have probably kicked the tires on at least once before and are probably currently doing so. I think at best the Big 12 has maybe a couple of teams that both would have any interest in kicking the tires on, and certainly a couple of teams that maybe one of those leagues would be interested in, but not both of them. So, yeah, the ACC in this measuring contest, without a doubt, has the biggest,
no question,
most popular brand still available,
and
without question.
The reason is they're really good schools, even if some are flat right now, but it's because of their history and tradition, where the Big 12 has a lot of teams that are getting better and in the mix, but they don't have what Florida State has, or what Miami has, or what, for example, Clemson has, which is national titles no matter when they were won. And all of them recently. Miami's, it's been a while, since 2001, but they played for one. When we come back, Ari Temkin will have Austin Meek from theathletic.com. He covers Michigan. Been a quiet day there so far. And Tyler Budge. I always like watching his feed from cfbudge.com on different type of power polls and more. He's got a group of 16 teams that he put out that he thinks can win the national championship. I think that's a lot, but it's his list. And so we'll have him on today just after 5 o'clock. A lot to get to. By the way, you've seen the last couple of days. Thank you, Rez, Garrett, and everybody. You have SFA, Stephen F. Austin, and Tarleton State, the newest sponsors. You'll see their logo pop up on our screen at different times, and we do appreciate them, both of them, for joining what we do on an everyday basis. This is 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, lowt.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, used to be, at pettycliniclot.com. What does that mean? As you get older, in your upper 30s, more likely your mid to upper 40s, and especially you can get it in starts to drop your low T level. And then you might be one out of every 3 to 4 men have it, symptomatics of low testosterone. Maybe you're the lucky part, the 60 or 75% that you don't deal with that. Your energy stays good, but maybe you have other problems. But the low T drops, your energy drops. Your low T drops, so can your sex drive and performance, and ED can creep in. So get your T level checked. Dr. Petty will do that by you contacting him on the site, pettycliniclowt.com. He'll get in touch with somebody and get involved and say, hey, you got an appointment at X, Y, and Z. He'll take care of it, get the results, get back with you. If your T level's too low, he can increase it with the program and the options that he has at pettycliniclowt.com.
Extreme Texas weather calls for Ray Broker, your Lennox premier dealer. Sign up for our year-round comfort plan and keep your home the perfect temperature no matter what the forecast is. Call or visit raybroker.com now. Ray Broker, your air conditioning and heating specialist.
Make this the summer event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get behind the wheel of an iconic new Dodge Charger RT and score $5,000 in savings. First responders and military members get an extra $500 bonus. Allen Samuels Dodge.
Come by, let's be friends.
Serving Central Texas since 1889, TFNB Your Bank for Life takes pride in being more than a bank. At TFNB, we remain committed to these principles. If you value them too, come join us. TFNB, Your Bank for Life.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
If you need legal advice on medical malpractice or personal injury, 18-wheeler accidents, or criminal, probate, and estate planning and transactional work, including private equity acquisitions, buying and selling businesses, and employment agreements, please contact David Dumas at the David Dumas Law Firm at daviddumaslawfirm.com. This 3 o'clock hour is brought to you by QC Kinetics. Feel better, move better, live better with regenerative medicine using your body's own healing abilities for natural pain relief. No surgery, no drugs, no downtime. With locations in Dallas and Houston at QCkinetics.com. It's time for the Smoak Show on 365 Sports with Craig Smoak and David Smoak.
We're back here on this Wednesday afternoon. Hope you're doing well. We're now joined by Ari Temkin, Big 12 Radio on TuneIn. We saw Ari last week at Frisco, but we see him almost every week. He joins the show with his insight, knowledge, and also opinions on the Big 12. Craig Smoak, David Smoak, we appreciate your time. Ari, I just went through a lot of what Jim Phillips discussed today at ACC Media Days. And a lot of it, I got to tell you, they're pretty healthy. They're making more money than they've ever made. They've doubled the revenue in the last 4 to 5 years. Their numbers are up. Everybody seems to have calmed down, maybe because they're not as good as they thought they were. Like Florida State got a little bit like a bully, and now here comes Miami. Are they right now, honestly, and if you look at the picture, the third best of the Power Four conference as far as health?
Yeah, I suppose you, okay, so how are you defining health?
Revenue.
Okay. That's a good one.
Television viewership, and a team that played for the national title last year that has risen back to where not quite anyone will ever be like what Miami might have been, but a team that's pretty healthy right now. And good, really good.
Yeah, for me, and, I'm not just trying to carry the water for the Big 12, but in a sense, I think the ACC is sort of where the Big 12 was in, let's say, 2015, 2016. Insofar as, you've got big brands, but there's a clear say, discrepancy between the top brands and the bottom brands. And, like the ACC is very much on the Big 12's timeline. The only difference is, that the Big 12 has already gone through all of this. And because the ACC, remember, had equal rev share across the board. And then they changed that to placate to the Florida States, the Clemsons, the Miamis, the North Carolinas of the world, because North Carolina and Clemson and Florida State and Miami were all talking publicly about how much they disagreed with what was happening and how much they wanted to get out. And I mean, at one point you had UNC's lawyers, penning a letter. I think this was last off season to talk about how they could get out. The ACC then had to adjust its grant of rights. The grant of rights in 2030 will be a lot easier to get out of, which is the same point in time, Smokey, that the rest of the conferences that are not the ACC will be going back to market for their TV. So, yeah, I mean, it looks great because they've got more revenue. They certainly have better, quote unquote, brands at the top. But I think beyond that, the health for me is still better with the Big 12 because I think the ACC is still on a path to implode. I think you still have a situation where the top brands are still going to be at a discrepancy relative to their biggest competitors in the SEC and the Big Ten. And I think you're going to have a level of disdain from the rest of the ACC as they start to see paychecks rolling through for the top brands that are pretty significantly different than what they're getting. So I think where we sit today, certainly the ACC is in good standing. They look to be the third best conference. That's what Phil Steele had when looking at the conferences overall. And we'll say the Big 12 did really well football-wise against the ACC last year. And, yeah, they didn't have a ton of matchups with the Florida States, the Clemsons, the Miamis, North Carolinas. Well, they did with North Carolina. But beyond that, the Big 12 really dominated the ACC. So, look, I see the picture you're painting, and I know that Jim Phillips is trying to paint that exact picture. I still think that we're on a collision course here for 2030 in which this thing implodes. Mm-hmm. And that's, again, when everybody else, except for the ACC, remember the ACC's deal is not up till 2036. Yeah. So, the Big 12 knew that when they budged in front of everybody else to get that deal done. Everybody else, the ACC or the Big 12, the SEC, and the Big 10 are going to go to market with their television deals in 2029, 2030, which again is when those conferences have an out, or the ACC has more of an out that is not as predatory from a monetary standpoint. So I still think there's an implosion date in 2030.
Yeah, I'm with you, Ari. And I think most people are. It's like, yeah, it's great that right now you're better positioned in the playoff or you got better TV ratings, but we're all just waiting for 3 more years to see like that. I just can't. He acknowledged that as well. He said, we want teams that want to be here. And to me, I was just telling him, I was like, well, that's like sticking with the girl. And like, then, she wants to start looking around and you're like, well, I only want people that want to be with me. And you're kind of trying to save face, even though you really still want the girl. You realize she doesn't really totally want you. You're like, so yeah, I only, and that's all valid, but he said that, and I think that right there kind of just tells you where the mindset is of like, yeah, that's still very real, and that's very much hanging over their heads. Forget ranking and comparing and all that. As an ACC fan, I wouldn't be able to really feel like I can take a deep breath and enjoy until we get to like 2031 and know what the hell this actually looks like, because it's just constant shadow that's being cast there.
Right. I mean, and this discrepancy here is very, they're basically following the exact same Big 12 playbook here and hoping for a different result. And that is to skew the revenue to be more advantageous for their top brands. I think so Clemson, I want to say, got about 55 million in conference distributions, and that thing can go all the way down to 40 to 38 million. So, there's a 20 to $30 million discrepancy here we're looking at potentially that is only going to widen in order to placate to the top brands. We've seen how this goes. Number one, from the Big 12's perspective, it didn't matter enough, right? It even placating to Texas and OU didn't keep them happy enough. I also think it works both ways because you have a lot of brands that probably think pretty highly of themselves, ACC schools that are looking up at these other brands thinking, why are they making so much more money? So I think there's a level of disdain from both sides of it that is a absolute concoction for a disaster. Like, we've already seen this play out. The Big 12's already seen this. In many ways, the Big 12 is a marriage of convenience. When Texas Tech fans are like, we need to get out as soon as we can, it's like, where are you going? You've got nowhere to go. None of these, if the latest rumor is Utah wants the Big 10. If Utah could be in the Big 10, they'd be in the Big 10. If any of these schools could be in a different conference, they would be. It is a marriage of convenience at this point in time. And I don't think that changes even when, let's say, Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina go to the SEC, and Duke and the rest of those top brands go to the Big Ten. I still think you're looking at a situation in which the SEC and Big Ten open up for a few select schools out of those conferences, and the Big 12 is sort of left with leftovers, which I think in that case makes the SEC and the Big Ten even stronger, makes the Big 12 stronger, but still not as strong as the Big Ten and the SEC.
Yeah, that's a great point. That the Big 12, although teams are trying to flourish, and BYU's one of them, obviously, and hell, they're a newbie. In Utah, of course, had a nice run in the Pac-12, but they're also like, and then what Texas is trying to do, and a couple of others. Yeah, you wonder if when I see that, well, we're going to pack up our crap and go. Where are you going? Where are you going? You're right. Where are you going? You're not going to the Sun Belt. They take you.
Right.
The Pac-12
will take you. Yeah.
I saw that on Pac-12, and that's not making fun of the fan bases. It's like, where are you going? Because if they wanted you, they would have already probably come knocking on your door.
No probably about it, Smokey.
Yeah.
No probably about it. This is a marriage of convenience. And I think every program right now in the Big 12 is trying to position themselves, to be a part of that hierarchy. But the fact remains, it's a marriage of convenience. And yeah, I think it's well stated to point out like the growth that this conference has shown independent of it, right? Like with Texas and OU in this conference, it just didn't allow for certain programs to spread their wings the way that they have. I think, Texas and OU were never going to allow for BYU to join this conference. BYU has been as additive to this conference as anybody. And I think, BYU has benefited a ton from being in the Big 12. I think the Big 12 has benefited a ton from BYU. Tech, has done a good job in organizing its base, and they have infused a ton of cash. I think Kansas, my alma mater, has similarly had a pretty large infusion of investments. We've seen from their latest from Ripple with the jersey patch, what that means for NIL. It's probably been a little bit slower, more of a drip over long-term as they've looked to fund, every program across the board. I mean, Kansas baseball is spending money at a level they've never spent at, which doesn't say much. But then, now Lance Leipold's complaining about the money that the football is getting, and then Bill Self's complaining about the money the bat, right? So, but they've got multiple billionaires investing in a way that's more of a slow burn and more of a long-term investment piece. So, and I think every school in the Big 12 is trying to do as much as possible in that way in order to position itself, not just for potential SEC Big 10, but just to be at the top of the Big 12, which could then really enhance the conference's profile overall, which has already happened. I mean, it 5 years ago to think that like, oh man, the Big 12 would be led by brands like Texas Tech and BYU, we'd be like, that doesn't sound good at all. But it's a pretty good start for a conference that was left for dead 5 years ago.
So I've seen, there's the random Tech fans that are like, let's go independent or, whatever. I've seen the, Arizona State.
Sure, go. See how it works out. See how independence works out.
Yeah, right. Even Cody Campbell would be like, I don't think I have the money for this, like after a while, because I think it's more expensive than people realize. But, Arizona State maybe is an intriguing team for the Big Ten one day down the line. Utah, like at least a segment of their fan base has convinced themselves that they are Big Ten bound here in about 3 years. So I think a lot of people are collecting receipts right now. But as a Kansas guy, I've heard the rumors about Kansas for years and years about the Big Ten. How much, strip away the Big 12 part of it, how much have you, as a Kansas guy, thought about that? How much have you heard that conversation yourself over the years?
Yeah, I mean, look, I would say pretty confidently that the Kansas looked towards the Big Ten when it looked like the Big 12 could dissolve. Given where the Kansas was as a football school from an academic side was a non-starter. I think the path that Kansas has taken since then to raise its academic profile, to be recognized nationally, academically, and then, to invest the way they have in football is not a coincidence. And it probably speaks to what they were told. It's as if Kansas as a program was a draft prospect, and they got pretty good feedback from the NFL draft on what would help them become a first-round pick. And that's what they've done. They have done the things that they were told could help them be in better standing in order to get to the Big Ten. With that being said, football is still not much of a powerhouse for Kansas. Back-to-back 5-7 seasons. Football drives the bus here. Kansas basketball is a very unique brand in that it transcends football, and it's probably up there in a way that Kentucky basketball and Duke basketball and North Carolina basketball are humongous brands. But, again, I don't. It feels like the Big Ten is waiting for, and the SEC are waiting for some of these ACC schools in order to open up. And maybe we're talking about a completely different situation years from now. I just don't know that there's a world in which there are Big 12 programs able to leave for life rafts in those conferences at that point in time. But it's still 4 or 5 years away at this point, and look at how much has changed brand wise in the last 4 to 5 years. So, I think where we are today is that, but it's also easy to look back and think like, man, look at how much BYU's brand has grown. To your point, Craig, the Arizona State piece, that's a profile that's been raised. Kenny Dillingham, what he's done in order to make them consistently competitive. They're doing an indoor tailgating practice facility that's going to be super cool. That will be an indoor practice facility that will then serve also during the season as a place to tailgate, because they don't have that. And it's obviously 100 million degrees outside in the desert at that point in time. So, yeah, I think the growth that many of these Big 12 programs have shown in the last 4 to 5 years show that what the next 4 to 5 years can bring, we can't really foresee today.
All right, one last question from me. We appreciate your time. It was great to see you again last week. Was there anything, the Yormark press conference, that people have their opinion? I thought Joey handled everything incredibly well. It was good that others from Tech weren't there to represent them other than Joey and the players. Was there anything else that is a storyline that perhaps stuck out to you that maybe we haven't discussed?
I love the way you phrased that so that I couldn't give you the Sorsby out there. BYU is so under the radar right now. Like I've got them winning the conference. But even if they don't, they're in a tier with Texas Tech. And I think that's a tier by themselves. Trying to think what else, but yeah. So like BYU is extremely under the radar. I think that there is let's just say tier 2 team here, which I would consider like Arizona, Houston, Arizona State, Utah, that very well could represent the Big 12 in the Big 12 championship. But with that being said, I think from a Big 12 perspective, which, nobody really cares about, but I think a repeat of Texas Tech BYU in the Big 12 championship game would be like the biggest benefit to the conference in terms of sustained excellence at the top. But I think there's a clear path for many of those schools, Houston, Utah, Arizona State, to break through this year. All those 4 programs in particular are kind of on the precipice after last year. Houston and Arizona in particular. Utah and Arizona State more of like betting on the come and betting on coaches and those kinds of things. But yeah, and then like to back up your point, I know you guys know Joey McGuire as well as anybody. I know Smokey, Kirby Hocutt. Like, yeah, I just feel bad for those guys. Those are great dudes, great humans. Really good at their jobs, that have been thrust into a situation that is really difficult. There's no manual for, and they're sort of the faces of it, despite being great. Like, and I would tell you if they weren't, like there's plenty of guys that aren't great. There's plenty of guys at administration and coaching that you don't root for, but those are 2 that you certainly do. And I just think like you feel for them because this is a tough situation that they didn't wish up, that nobody would wish upon them.
I didn't ask this question last week, and I probably should have. I don't know what Joey would have said, but it almost as if, wouldn't he like to have the judge rule against Sorsby playing, and then that never puts them in any kind of position where they have to do what they do.
That's what they thought was going to happen.
Yeah, no question, Craig.
That's what they thought.
And I was driving back Wednesday night. I was like, damn it, I had written that down. But hey, man, thank you very much, Ari.
I bet you Joey would give you the anscer off the record there.
Yeah, off the record, in fact, yes. I'm going to text him. He was in Cabo. Garrett was getting married over the weekend. So, yeah, he went from Frisco, Lubbock to Frisco to Cabo. Ari Temkin with us, Big 12 Radio on TuneIn. We appreciate his time. When we come back, Austin Meek covers Michigan for theathletic.com. By the way, Cheyenne is running the mothership, not doing the audio, which is great, or graphics, which is great, or anything else. She's running the show. How about that in just her second day with us here? This is 365 Sports. Stephen F. Austin State University, my alma mater, and one of our new sponsors. Right now, the energy in Nacogdoches is amazing. I don't know what you may have heard or not, but I was talking to a friend of mine who's an SFA graduate, works in another school in media relations. But when the University of Texas system took over the SFA campus, the best part for me was that the name of the school would not change. I did not want University of Texas or Texas A&M Nacogdoches or whatever it is with some other ones, with all due respect, no matter the amount of financial infusion. But the amount of money the UT system is putting into that campus with facilities, academics, education, sports, and athletics is amazing. If you want to schedule, go to sfajax.com. I love the school. It's the reason I'm in broadcasting, because I got a degree from there. By being able to be on a radio station and TV station that nobody could hear or see that we were on, thank God. But SFA has meant a lot to me, and I hope it means a lot to you. Go to sfajax.com.
It's in the major leagues for 24 years. And let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
With over 25 years of excellence in IT, Carrion Solutions is your trusted technology partner. From managed IT services to cutting-edge cybersecurity, our expert team delivers tailored solutions that drive success. Our portfolio includes products such as Veeam, Bitdefender, Microsoft, Cisco, and Fortinet. Call David Carrion and his team of experts. Call 888-522-2221 or visit us at carrionsolutions.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Hello, I'm Camille Johnson with Camille Johnson Realtors. We specialize in selling residential real estate agent all across our community, and we love serving all types of families. We have been in business at Camille Johnson Realtors for almost 9 years, and I have been a residential real estate agent for almost 40 years. And we love our partnership with 365. So thank you for partnering with me, and thank you so much to all of my clients who have made our company a success.
Celebrate American value and American quality during the Red, White, and Blue sales event at Richard Car. You want a Richard Car GMC? Get your Sierra now and save $13,000 or more on every truck in stock with trade-in. Save $14,000 on a 2026 GMC Sierra SLE Crew Cab. Or save $13,500 on a 2026 GMC Sierra Pro, now under $29,000. Drive American quality and get American savings during the Red, White, and Blue sales event at Richard Car.
Richard Car, they have the truck for you.
Marco's only uses premium toppings, which means your pizza isn't just flavorful, it's mushroom-full, or sausage-full, or pepperoni-full. And you can get unlimited medium one-topping pizzas from the place named America's favorite pizza chain starting at $8.99 every day, only at Marco's.
This 4 o'clock hour is brought to you by Stonewood Dental, your one-stop shop for your dental needs, specializing in teeth cleaning, fillings, crowns, sealants, root canals, IV sedation, extractions, implants, bridges, dentures, full mouth restorations, and bioaesthetic dentistry. Our priority is your comfort from the moment you walk through the front door. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. It's time for the Smoak Show on 365 Sports with Craig Smoak and David Smoak.
Obviously, one of the stories from this week that took center stage and still there, I think there's a board meeting and Board of Regents meeting tomorrow in Ann Arbor, is what's happening with the University of Michigan Athletic Department, Athletic Director Ward Manuel. We know what they have been through. We know Sharon Moore's no longer the coach and all of that. And Austin Meek from theathletic.com joins us on 365 Sports. Austin, thanks for your time. So you're going into a week, you probably have things planned, and it's all of a sudden, what the hell? How's your week been, young man?
That's life on the Michigan beat. I've had a lot of those weeks since I started covering Michigan. You know, there was a sense, I think, that something like this was probably going to happen around this time, midsummer, before the football season. I think Michigan would like to deal with this as much as possible before the football season starts. Big Ten Media Day is just a couple weeks away. So it's just one of those weeks in Michigan. I've had a lot of them.
So, Austin, where do you feel like we find ourselves on this Wednesday? Because there was the reporting at the tail end of the weekend and kind of the bubbling up of, man, something's going to give here. And then Michigan says, like, we're not planning on doing anything this week. So where are we as of right now, do you feel like?
Well, we're waiting to see what happens at this board meeting tomorrow morning. I anticipate that there's going to be some discussion of the Jenner and Block investigation into the culture of the athletic department. I don't know how much will be revealed from the actual findings of that investigation, but I would expect it to be addressed. My feeling is that it probably is going to be a little bit underwhelming for a lot of people. I think if you were expecting to get a big, thick report with a lot of details explaining how all of this went down, you're probably not going to get that tomorrow. I'm going to guess it's going to be more like some structural recommendations of things that Michigan can do better next time. I don't know if we'll get definitive word about Ward Manuel's future at Michigan. I'd be a little surprised if we get that tomorrow. But it certainly seems like that's something that's going to come into focus in the near future. It seems like from everything that I've been told this week and everything that's been said by Ward Manuel himself, his exit at Michigan is coming at some point, but maybe not immediately. It may be something like Ward Manuel stays on for a period of time with a planned transition in the athletic director's role. But I don't know. I'm as curious as anybody to see what comes out of this meeting tomorrow.
He has been on, I think, a podcast, The Michigan Insider. I know that he has been steadfast that he's there and plans to be there, and he's had conversations, et cetera. Let me ask you this. And if you're a Michigan alum or you are a Michigan fan, how much blowback is there that, yes, they have the football title, they have the men's basketball title, whatever. They're a proud university, but man, this is ridiculous. Can we clean this up?
Yeah, I think fans are tired of the scandals. They're tired of the headlines off the court, off the field. I think they're ready to be done with the whole Sharon Moore era. Like I said earlier, I think by the time football season gets here, fans really just want to be able to root for Kyle Whittingham and for this team and not have these stories continuing to come out about the Sharon Moore era. And that's why I think in some ways, if Michigan doesn't put this report out, I think it's a mistake because it's just going to keep dripping out. It's going to be story after story. I think a lot of people in Ann Arbor really would just like to move on from this, but until the full thing comes out, it's going to be hard to do.
And Austin, I mean, there is a chance that maybe it doesn't, right? Like we covered the Baylor story and their whole crux of it was the Pepper Hamilton report. There is no written report, and it feels like that was just something Michigan saw at one point and tucked that away if ever needed for future use, and is like, yep, we're going to pull that one out right now.
Yeah, maybe they were taking notes on that one. I've seen conflicting things and heard conflicting things. I'm sure you saw there's a story in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, some good reporting about things that are in that Jenner and Block report. So it certainly appears that something was presented in writing or visually to people at Michigan. I don't know what form that took, if it was a written report, if it was a briefing. It's really hard to say. Michigan is currently being sued right now for violating the Freedom of Information Act, allegedly, by withholding documents related to the investigation. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. So far, Michigan's stance has been, this is privileged information. It's protected by attorney-client privilege. We're not going to release it. I don't know how long they'll be able to maintain that stance, but that's what their stance has been so far.
Without that basketball title, and I know they've had success in other sports as well in that football title, is this all taken care of like 2 and 3 years ago, even though there's been other additional things in that time period? Or is that irrelevant, do you think, to the conversation, the success they've had in those major sports?
Well, I think if you're talking about Ward Manuel's future at Michigan, his tenure at Michigan, I think part of the reason he's still Michigan's athletic director is the fact that Michigan's had a lot of success. He's been the AD during one of the most successful, maybe the most successful era of Michigan athletics. You think about the football national championship, basketball national championship, Frozen Four in hockey, national championships in gymnastics. I mean, it's across the board. Michigan has been very successful. I think that's a big part of the reason why a lot of people like Ward Manuel think he's done a good job. Even his critics, I think, would have to acknowledge that Michigan's programs have been successful. It's just a question of how much other stuff, how much baggage are you willing to deal with along with the success that Michigan's had?
Kyle Whittingham, we've mentioned him with you before, but I wonder what he's thinking. You know, this doesn't affect him at all, but then again, it has to be a distraction, right?
Maybe to an extent. I mean, I would imagine Kyle Whittingham went into this with eyes wide open. He knew what was going on. He knew the whole Sharon Moore story. So I'm sure he anticipated that his first year at Michigan was going to be full of a lot of this stuff. And I'm sure he was realistic about the AD that hired him, probably not going to be there for his entire time at Michigan. So in a way, I think Kyle Whittingham could come out of this as maybe one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful person in Michigan athletics, which is kind of crazy to think about because he just got here. He hasn't coached a game yet, but he's already been here longer than the men's basketball coach. And he may have a new AD at some point in the next year. So I think in some ways, Kyle Whittingham is in a pretty good position here as the guy who really could have a chance to steer the ship at Michigan.
Somehow, weirdly, Kyle Whittingham went from a guy basically being forced out to having like this invisible power of just everything kind of falling his way. He just needs to sit back and not touch anything, and everything's going great for him. Austin, and all of just there's like that list I saw of the 20 things that have happened, and some of it's like a guy got a DUI, so it's not exactly the same as a sign stealing scandal or whatever. But has there been any like revelations that have been new or anything that may be in the reporting or the information that has stood out to you that is not just, I guess, just kind of the typical conversation we've been having? Has this all just been pretty well known, or has there been some illumination to this whole thing for you?
Well, I thought the most notable thing in that Wall Street Journal story that came out yesterday was the handwritten note from Ward Manuel from 2024 before Sharon Moore's first game as Michigan's head coach, referencing that he had instructed Sharon not to travel with his assistant that he was having the relationship with. And we don't know the context of that. We really don't know anything except that Ward Manuel wrote that note. But some additional reporting that we had yesterday, my colleague Bruce Feldman and I, about what was happening in the program at that time, that first preseason camp when Sharon Moore was going into his first season as head coach, and the fact that people were raising alarms about this relationship at that time, about Sharon Moore working out with his assistant in the weight room. There was a complaint to the HR department. So all of that points to the fact that Michigan had reasons to be concerned about this relationship for a long time. And the relationship began, according to the Wall Street Journal report, all the way back in 2022. So this went on for a long time. It's hard to believe that people at Michigan didn't at least suspect something that was happening for a lot of that time. And so the question of how did it get this far? How did it get to the point in 2025 where Michigan is firing Sharon Moore for something that had been going on for so long? To me, that is still the big question with all this.
Yeah, so tomorrow the Board of Regents, correct? They're having their meeting, and you mentioned whether there's anything written or it's verbal or whatever, because Craig brought up Pepper Hamilton and Baylor. There's nothing. It's like gone. Mm-hmm. And they did that to cover their ass as well, which what Michigan might be doing too. So if you look at where they are, it's a very powerful school. They are an alpha. They don't seem to get affected by any of this in the end in any way, do they? They just keep chugging along and go through one after another, whatever the scandal or story might be negatively.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of if you look at their record on the field, I mean, in some ways, I'm still stunned and wonder, how did that Michigan team last year win 9 games when you find out all of the dysfunction that was happening behind the scenes? The basketball program wins a national championship. I mean, I have to think that in some ways, all of these scandals, all of this off-field stuff, all of the turmoil, it does, it does diminish, I think, in some ways, what Michigan is capable of. I feel like Michigan is capable of even more than what we've seen if Michigan could stay out of its own way. And sometimes that's proven to be hard to do. I think it's going to be a really fascinating year. It does seem like Michigan is a program that just sort of keeps on going. But there have been periods in the not too distant past at Michigan where they really dropped off. I mean, you don't have to go back that far in football to the Rich Rodriguez era, the Brady Hoke era, even at times during Jim Harbaugh's tenure. And in basketball, they've had some really down periods in basketball, along with some really, really high highs. And so I'm curious this year with 2 new coaches, Kyle Whittingham, Mike Boynton Jr., the basketball program. Is this going to be the kind of success that Michigan is used to, or all of this stuff that's happening? Is Michigan going to have to pay a price for that? Is it going to catch up with Michigan this year?
I'm not sure if you saw this, but remember when the focus was on what Texas Tech was doing and all of that was Sorsby? There were a couple of schools, and I think Michigan was one of them, that said that they weren't going to play the volleyball game against Tech. Remember that? Because
I do. Yeah, I remember that.
I saw it. It was lighthearted during a week that otherwise has been probably miserable in Ann Arbor or among the Michigan faithful, where a Tech fan goes, I think Tech ought to cancel the volleyball game against Michigan because they were talking about integrity and all of that stuff, and yet they have this big old mess on their plate. I didn't know if you caught that or not.
I didn't catch that, but that's pretty funny. Look, Michigan is an easy target because it is a school that likes to position itself as leaders and the best, and is the whole Michigan man mystique, right? And if you're a Michigan fan, or if you went to Michigan, maybe you feel a little pride around that. If you didn't go to Michigan, if you don't like Michigan, that probably really gets on your nerves, right? And so Michigan is a pretty easy target when something's happening there. I think there are a lot of fan bases around the country that like to see Michigan taken down a notch, and that's certainly been the case with all this stuff going on.
Austin, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Keep working it. I know there's a lot of angles, and tomorrow maybe not much comes out of it, but at least that chapter moves on to something else. Have a great day. Montreal Expos hat, by the way.
Yeah, you like that?
Andre Dawson and all those guys back with Gary Carter.
Mm-hmm.
Are you old enough to even remember that?
Very, very vaguely. Yeah. They were still in Montreal when I was a kid. I have a few memories of it. But I like the retro look though. That's my thing.
The 94 Expos, and you probably do know this, had the best record in baseball near the All-Star break, and the league shut down that season.
Strike in 94. Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows what would have happened with that? Thank you very much for your time. That's Austin with theathletic.com, and the latest tomorrow, big day, perhaps with Michigan and the Board of Regents meeting. When we come back, what is the hot seat level? Who is the 1 through 5 or 6 coaches? None of these are going to probably surprise you, but CBS Sports with the hot seat, who are they and what does it mean? And a little bit of nugget or two about those who aren't on it. This is 365 Sports. Home Place Interior TX.com is the website for Home Place Interiors, which can and will help you with one-of-a-kind area rugs, custom window treatments, and help finish up and make something inside where you live, your home or your condo or your maybe even your apartment, look a lot better. Home Place Interiors has been around a long time, over 20 years, have familiar faces with new owners. For example, Selena and Stephanie now own and operate Home Place Interiors. But my good buddy John Proctor, who opened it 20 plus years ago, he is still there every day to give historical perspective and his advice as well along the way. Also, every day for them is rug season. Home Place Interiors, they have the largest selection of area rugs in town, in the city of Waco or surrounding area. I was in the building a couple of weeks ago for a meeting, then John took me on a tour, and they've got the huge area in the back with all of the rugs you could imagine. And then when you walk in the front door off Lake Air Drive in Waco, off to the right, they have amazing, beautiful Pakistani type rugs that are one of a kind, and you can get those as well. Your flooring and carpet needs, Home Place Interior, 5-star reviews all up and down their website. 523 Lake Air Drive, Selena, Stephanie, Katie, and John. Home Place Interiors, homeplaceinteriorstx.com.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
When you play hard, sometimes you fall hard. Sports injuries require special treatment. At Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, our team of expert doctors provides athletes and active adults with comprehensive sports medicine care, diagnostics. Whether you're in high school, college, or beyond, we'll help you get back on the field. Call on the team physicians for Baylor Athletics. Call Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics.
At Home Place Interiors, we elevate your space with elegance and class. We are the exclusive Sonoma tile dealer in Central Texas, bringing you the best in high-end floor coverings that transform your home with beauty and elegant design. Our white glove service and expert consultations ensure your vision becomes a reality as we take you step by step through the process. Call today to schedule your personal design consultation. Visit homeplaceinteriorstx.com. Home Place Interiors, crafting elegance, one room at a time.
I pitched in the major leagues for 24 years, and let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
Here we go. We're back, 365 Sports on YouTube, The Smoak Show. I'm David Craig Smoak. We're on set, your Bank of Life, TFNB, your Bank for Life studios. Now, every year, and it doesn't matter who it might be, but every single year, you have at the start the various power polls and preseason polls and who can do this and who can do that. Tyler Budge, he's going to join us, CF Budge on Twitter, for who he thinks can win the national title, and a few other notes. We'll do that in the next segment. But the college football hot seat rankings, these are the categories of what CBS Sports, with about, I think it was 10 to 12 different writers that eventually put their list together. The categories are 5.0, win or be fired. There are 3 coaches in that category. We'll get you those in a minute. from 4 to 5 or nearly 5. Start improving now. And then pressure is mounting. And then all good for now. And then safe and secure. And then at the bottom, of 47 coaches, 95 are in really good shape. If you think about it, almost 120 are in really good shape, but the untouchables are at 0.0 to 0.9. So who are the coaches among the poll by CBS sports writers who cover college football? Here are the coaches who are in the categories where, like, for example, when your car starts to overheat. And here they are. At the very top, we got the list right here. And in fact, one of them, there we go. Mike Norvell at the top, Florida State, along with Luke Fickell and Dave Aranda. This is how they put them in order. They're all at 5.0, Craig. All three of them are on a very hot, steamy seat. And Norvell today at ACC Media Day says that he does not get into like fearing for his job or anything like that. But those three right there don't surprise me whatsoever. You don't hear Fickell's name as much as a part of this list as you see with Mike Norvell and Baylor's Dave Aranda.
I think you see Luke Fickell's name a lot more if you live in a different part of the country. I think it's probably that they don't see Dave Aranda's name all that often up there, but down here you see it more often. But everywhere you look, you see Mike Norvell's name. And you know what? If I had a massive buyout where if I got fired, I'd still make tens of millions of dollars, I probably wouldn't be fretting it too much either. And knowing full well that I'll get another coaching job sooner rather than later. Why would you be fearful outside of just the personal embarrassment and just the personal battle of not being as good as you hope to be and all of that? That's rough on anybody who has a soul. But at the same time, it's not something he doesn't have to worry about paying bills regardless of what happens. Like most Americans, he doesn't have to worry about where the next paycheck's coming from, because whether he's still at Florida State or he gets fired, he's going to have bigger paychecks than most people know what to do with still coming his way for a certain amount of time. So, yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned if I was him either. But you still want to do well for yourself regardless of the money. So I think his pride, more than he would probably admit, is definitely stinging a little bit, because people are saying he's everything but a great coach over these last couple of years. But yeah, I mean, those three are the logical choices. I don't know what prevents Mike Locksley from being 0.1 higher. I think he's pretty much in that same category as the others. And maybe I just need to fully flesh out the article to see the difference there. But I mean, it's basically the same thing when you're talking 5.0 to 4.9. So yeah, I think those top four are all guys that we're most likely talking about getting replaced at the end of the year. I think I've said multiple times now about Dave Aranda. I mean, for me at least, 8-4 is not going to cut it. They have to be like 9-3, in my opinion, to show that they've made meaningful progress. You just went 8-4 2 years ago. That shows me nothing. You just did that. Why would this time it be, this is a good 8-4. 2 years ago, it wasn't enough, and we were going to fire you last year when you followed that 8-4 up with a stinker of a season. But now we're back to 8-4, so we're right back on track. No, you need to win like 9 games to show that you're really moving forward, in my opinion. And I really like Dave Aranda as a human being, but it'd be one thing if he'd had 3 years and one of those years was a Big 12 championship, and then 1 year was like an 8-4, and then you had a year that was like 3-9, and people just don't believe in you anymore. That's one thing. You've been around for damn near a decade at this point. Like, we're closing in. We're closer to it being 10 years than we're closer to it being 4 or less years. So it's not as though there hasn't been enough of a sample size. There's not a lot of momentum. There's not a lot of belief in upward trajectory. There's just a lot of hope that DJ Lagway and Joe Klanderman and some of these changes can spark something. But yeah, I mean, he's unquestionably on the hottest of hot seats. And I think Fickell's the same. Norvell's, as far as nationally talked about, by far the most, he's the one that has the hottest of seats, just based on the general conversation. But yeah, Fickell and Aranda are right behind him. And I think Locksley just being at Maryland is maybe what prevents him from being talked about or feeling like he's in the same grouping as those others. Just maybe there's not as much attention being paid there. But yeah, I mean, this is, if you would have told me nothing about this list and said, hey, go put the top of the list together, that would have been the 4 names I would have mentioned. And then I would add Shane Beamer not far behind that because there's been just a lot of talk surrounding him over the last couple of years now. You hope Lenore Sellers can kick it into a different gear and raise the whole program up on his shoulders along with his teammates and save your job if you're Shane Beamer. But the SEC is only getting more competitive, not less. So if you're South Carolina, you can't really afford to just kind of bog down for too long. So I can understand kind of the chirping coming from there. And then with Belichick in North Carolina, I don't know. I would imagine that, he probably is on a bit of a hot seat, but it still feels like so new to a degree. And it does feel like they sort of sacrificed so much in this experiment to begin with that I don't know that they're going to be that quick to pull the plug, but maybe they will be. Maybe it just gets too embarrassing too quickly this season. And they're like, all right, this isn't worth this squeeze anymore. And nobody would have blinked twice if they had decided that like several months ago, the last time what's her name was in the headlines and apparently pulling strings behind the scenes. So it feels like a little quick based on just simply results for Belichick, but we know it's more than results when it comes to him.
Here's the deal. I think if they were to all of a sudden just panic, and I don't know if it'd be panic, but if they all of a sudden just made a change, they might set themselves out back another 5 or 6 years. But you got to know if, in fact, keeping him, if it's another average at best season, you could do that anyway. So here's the thing about Loxley. He was under Nick Saban for a long, long time. He's a former Saban assistant. He had been an interim at Maryland for 1 year, his second year as a coordinator there. His overall record at Maryland, it's at 37 and let's see, I just had it here. His overall record at Maryland is 37 and 49 and 17 and is that right? 17 and 48 in conference play. They have not had a winning record in the years he's been the head coach at Maryland in the Big Ten Conference. They have not had a winning record. He took over as an interim again in 15, 1-5. The best they've done in a conference is 4-5 a couple of years in a row. They did go 8-5. They went 7-6, 8-5, 8-5, had some momentum. They've got a young freshman quarterback in Malik Washington who could be like the person that allows them to get over the hump and gets them back into the win column more often than not.
Well, he's a sophomore because he played all of last year, Malik Washington.
He's a freshman last year, sophomore coming up this year.
Yeah, we saw a lot of him last year, and that's part of what you circle the wagons around is Malik Washington. But I thought you were going to give me some he's actually closer to 500. Nope, not anywhere close to that, actually. So, the buyout was one reason for him sticking around as long as he has. That's $10+ million buyout, and not just everybody has that hanging around in their pockets. So I think that played into it last year as far as the decision goes. And now you're doing the last-ditch effort of, we're going to go round up more NIL, and that'll be the difference maker. We saw that with Dave Aranda. I think we've seen that with Luke Fickell already this offseason or last offseason. But that's typically the move you make right before you fire the coach when he doesn't turn it around, as you say, we're just going to reinvest and we're going to double our NIL and you're basically doing the last things that you can do to possibly try to salvage it and make it work. And you're leaving no room for the guy to say, well, we didn't have this support. We didn't have that. No, we're giving you everything. You got to make the cake, though. We're giving you all the ingredients. So maybe some of the ingredients weren't top shelf, and now Maryland has said, all right, we're buying the best brands, and so here it is. You have no more excuses. Go out and win. And if he doesn't, then, he's gone. That buyout will lower, and they move on. But, Malik Washington's a really exciting young player, so I can see where that gave him some extra leg room as far as being able to hang around when combined with the buyout number and probably also what they were looking out and realizing when they scanned, okay, what would it look like if we did fire him right now? Who are you going to get? Who's going to be the next coach? And you have the money lined up to go pay that coach and a $13 million buyout and Malik Washington's NIL money and this and that. So it's not as simple these days as just being the contract, and it's not as simple as previous years when it just wasn't winning enough. There are some other things in play, particularly NIL and talent. So that saved him for 1 year. But he's got to win. Aranda's got to win. Fickell and Norvell have to win, or we are definitely talking about coaching changes at all four or some combination of those four schools. That's like I said, you didn't even need to show me this list, and those would have been the four names. Yep. I think I would have had Aranda above Fickell, but other than that would have been the list.
Beamer's locked in. And by the way, T.D. Fisher, who's a big Nebraska fan, he said, hey, in Big Ten country, Fickell's name is like hot on the stove when it comes to that. Like if he was in the South or somewhere else.
Yeah, you just made the comment of like, I don't know if I think if you're up in that part of the country, I think is what I said, that you've heard that name plenty. It's like hearing Aranda's down here. So I think there's plenty of conversation around him. I think just maybe we're a little bit more shielded from it because the Dallas Morning News isn't writing about Luke Fickell, but they are up in Madison and all points in between. So Beamer's like on that next tier for me, and then Belichick's almost in a separate tier from that as well, because I think he is a little bit different. But I don't see any like extreme, like I can't believe his name's on the list. No, these all make sense.
And there's a kind of a slight drop off after 6. That's why I just went 1 through 6. Those were the ones with 4.0 or higher. Mike Norvell's quote today at ACC Media Days on the pressure, is he coaching for his job? I don't fear failure. I do fear regret. So, that's it's one of those. I might put that up in the office that I have at the condo. I like those kind of things, that the little sayings like that can inspire you or also kind of help calm you down or maybe motivate you too. All right, so this is the entire article, by the way, from CBS Sports. Adam Ergel actually is the one that wrote it, but all sorts of writers were involved. Here's one note, though, about the rankings from last year. They had 8 coaches in the same scenario as 4.0 and higher. They had 8 coaches who received the sports hot seat rating of 4.1 or higher a year ago. 5 of them lost their job. 5 of the 8 lost their job. Hugh Freeze, Sam Pittman, Mike Gundy, among others. Oklahoma's Brent Venables was in that list of 4.0. And Brett Brennan, I remember that. Arizona also, but they turned around the narrative with really good years. Oklahoma made the playoff, and Arizona won the 9 games.
Yeah, I mean, Brent Venables did a great job rebounding, and now his seat's entirely cool. But all it takes is one bad year with big expectations in tow to get back to where he was just a year ago. So a lot of expectations entering this season for Oklahoma. You just have to really hope that Mateer has evolved, and the health will be a big factor for him as well, obviously. But they've got a team loaded for bear. They're not necessarily mentioned right off top like Texas or Alabama or Georgia, but they're in that next grouping, I think, and making the playoff a year ago, as bad as the loss to Bama was at home, just having that opportunity and not being able to take full advantage of it. It was a big step forward. So, I think his seat rightfully has cooled off, but it's still Oklahoma. So all it takes is one sideways year and people will be clamoring again. That's the pressure that comes with that job. I do wish that on the CBS site there was a better way to kind of peruse through the info, because they just have them alphabetically instead of being like going by the rating itself. You kind of have to go one by one, and it just jumps around a lot. To just 1.1 to 1.9 to 3.5. It'd be nice to just kind of hit the button and everybody's like ranked in order to see the total hot list. But instead it's just alphabetically by school. Here's one. Dion's at a 3.1. So what was that on the scale? That would make him pressure is mounting, which I would agree with that.
Yep.
I mean, there's
14 coaches, Craig, with a 3 to 3.99. You go down. We got time. We have obviously Tyler Budge coming up in the next segment. Go through the 14 coaches if you could see it. Can you get it quick enough or not?
3 or above.
Yeah.
I
Kalen
can.
DeBoer's a part of that list.
I can, but that's where it'd be cool to just hit the rating and it's all organized. But nevertheless, still a good article and some interesting stuff on here. Let me kind of skim through. So Kalen DeBoer is at 3. Just leave that scale up, if you would.
The categories of the rankings.
So that people can follow along with what the number corresponds with. So 3 would be that you're having pressure mounting. And so you're on a little bit of a seat that's warming. And that's not anything I think too crazy to say about Kalen DeBoer entering this season. I think, pressure's mounting's probably pretty fair, and it's on the low end of that scale, just out of that all good for now. So, that makes sense. Dave Arenda's at a 5. We mentioned Bill O'Brien at Boston College is at a 3.5. So pressure starting to turn into you need to show something there. And I would agree with that. I think Boston College is kind of in that probably that place right now where they do need to start showing some more results. Scott Satterfield, Cincinnati, 3.5. So the pressure's mounting. You have the backdrop of the Sorsby stuff, and we'll see what comes of that, because either their name is going to be cleared and there's going to be a whole lot of, well, what about Cincinnati, that turned out to be just empty and had no actual weight behind it? Or there's going to be a lot of, well, what about Cincinnati, that just gets doubled and tripled down on and says, see, Cincinnati knew this, that, and the other. Surprise for you, though, Cincinnati fans would probably be the loudest in celebrating Scott Satterfield leaving his job at this point.
He bounced back. Was it last year? They finished poorly, but he's done that a couple of different times at Cincinnati.
I think people prematurely put him on. It's kind of like Brent Brennan. They gave him 1 year and they go, oh, he's on the hot seat, like Arizona's Ohio State or something like that. I kind of found that preposterous to begin with, that you brought this guy over after Jetfish had a really successful run. And I get why you suddenly had expectations, but at the same time, like, you're Arizona. You're giving him 1 year and saying, you better turn it around or else. I don't know about that.
I think that with Fish being so popular before he left for Washington, Brennan comes in, and then you have Arizona State, of course, have the huge year in 2024. Perhaps that put a little more heat on Arizona.
But I think that was just totally unrealistic, and I just didn't agree with it being that soon to start kind of calling for his name. But he turned it around last year, and it cooled off, and you don't hear that any longer. But, Scott Satterfield, I don't think Scott Satterfield saved his job in any way. I think that, again, it's just – who are you going to fire guys after 2 years for being bowl eligible, or being right? Who are you? So I think that's what Scott Satterfield's dealing with now, is that now we're at a point in year 3 where it's like, okay, dude, you've fallen down the stretch the last couple of years. Like, this year, it's year 3. That's the crux year that you've got to perform.
The Sorsby thing, if something comes out of it, that's one thing. But as far as winning games, I don't think they want to see him just treading water, like 7 and 6
they want to be on an upward trajectory.
Yeah.
So Scott Satterfield's on the pressure's mounting. Dabo Sweeney, 3.1.
Okay.
And I think that's fair, but still on the low end. Dion, 3.1.
Bill O'Brien.
I already mentioned him.
Okay. All right.
Dion, that one definitely has to go up if they don't take a big step forward. I just actually saw Brennan Marion tweet a second ago kind of talking about it's okay to not believe, but there's nothing wrong with supporting people before you see the results. I think he's going to be a godsend maybe for Dion this season. But Dion definitely feeling some more pressure than he has so far in his tenure. Mike Norvell.
Yep.
What?
No, just list the names because we got a guest coming up. We just list the names.
Clay Helton of Georgia Southern's on here. Dell McGee of Georgia State. Going down, Sonny Cumbie at
You know
La
what
Tech.
Sonny Cumbie was last year, Craig? 5.0, and ended up turning that thing around at Louisiana Tech. So he's dropped that number quite a bit from last year.
Derek Mason, Middle Tennessee is 3.6. Jeff Levy, Mississippi State at 3.3. Dave Dorn at NC State at a 3. Matt Rule at Nebraska is a 3. Belichick, we already mentioned him.
Oh, he's at a 4.
We already mentioned Beamer. So, we're getting close to the end here, and there's not Lincoln Riley at a 3.8. So that's one of the higher ones that we've seen. And I can see that they've got a lot of expectation this year. So, they definitely have to show something. They better be in that playoff conversation at minimum, or else, I could see where that starts to bubble over a little bit more. Scotty Walden at UTEP at a 3. And then that's it as far as the rest of the list goes.
And Walden, of course, he joined us a month or two ago. They got a lot to turn around at UTEP. They've got a lot of work to do at UTEP. And then, if Lincoln Riley, if they're not among the top constantly in that college football playoff rankings, then that's going to be interesting to see how they react at Southern Cal. We're now joined by Tyler Budge, CF Budge on Twitter. We appreciate his time. Tyler, thank you. It's been a while since we had you on. we were discussing the hot seats. Everybody's got a list. There's 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 from you. We'll get to that in a minute. Did we miss anybody, or did that list miss anybody that you think may be under a little bit more of heat than perhaps is listed?
I think we're in an interesting spot this year where a lot of the top names are pretty well known. So like the Mike Norvells of the world, the Dave Arandas, those are pretty well known and talked about. Hearing you talk about Satterfield, I think that's an appropriate name to be in there, even if it might seem unreasonable because he's improved each year he's been there. And you're just talking about it. He made a bowl game. Can't that be enough? So off the top of my head, an underrated name that I didn't already hear listed, I don't know if I have one off the top of my head because we did see a lot of guys get fired. I mean, in particular, look at the SEC. We had like a quarter of the conference fire their coaches, basically. So I think you guys touched on all the hits.
Budge, what has been the most interesting storyline of the offseason to you? Does it have to do with the new coaches? Does it have to do with scandals? Does it have to do with talent? Like, kind of where does your brain go as far as interest level?
Well, me personally, I know this isn't everybody's favorite thing, but I love the new FBS editions. I just found the North Dakota State one it's a program that so many people have been clamoring for them to join the FBS, for it to happen so suddenly for this season. And in the Mountain West, like, I'm a huge fan of that. And then the Sacramento State move, as bizarre as that is, how desperate Sacramento State has been to be in on the FBS party. They wanted the Pac-12. They settle for the MAC. I know that's not the most broadly appealing story. That's probably going to be your Brendan Sorsby because that comes with a lot of implications. But for me, I always like to celebrate when a program makes the move, especially if it was as unique and sudden as those two kind of were.
It was so penal to try to move, wasn't it, before? I mean, you had this timeline, and we've had coaches on from schools that were trying to make the move. Sam Houston State. Hell, one year they basically just like redshirted the entire roster because they wanted to make sure that they were back the next year. Tarleton State, and you mentioned Sacramento State. How much will that, or will it affect teams that want to make the move up if they can, now that it seems like it's not as tough to do?
Yeah, it seems like it's sort of becoming, I don't know what you call it, maybe an arms race of schools that are wanting to make the transition to do it before it becomes much more difficult to do. And I think something else that's super encouraging is the CUSA is a great example. Look at these schools that are moving up and having immediate success. You have Kennesaw State winning that league last year in just their second year in existence as an FBS program. Jacksonville State won it in their second year. Delaware's in a good spot this year in the CUSA. So you're watching these success stories. And if I'm Tarleton State right now, or one of those programs wanting to move up, I'm thinking, hey, why not us in a couple of years?
I appreciate that you don't just focus in on like the top 15 teams, and that you have expanded horizons to take a look at like what's maybe not necessarily going to be a big ratings poll, but is just a part of the fabric of this sport and why we love it so much. And so while the Pac-12 has taken a step back, I know that was a part of some of the forward looking you were doing with realignment. How excited are you to see the Pac in this new form with all these new faces and Oregon State, Washington State having some buddies for the first time in a while?
It's super exciting. I mean, I just love the structure of the conference title race. And so having a couple of those programs in Washington State and Oregon State kind of in limbo the past couple of years, it's kind of takes something away because the conference title race is part of the fun. And I mean, you look at the new Pac-12, it's just super exciting. If you're a fan, especially of West Coast football, you've got really all the best brands from the Mountain West, a couple of teams with power conference infrastructure, Texas State coming into the mix. I mean, that's a program that I don't think has gotten the flowers it probably deserves for all the investment they've done. So it's just a really compelling mix of programs. And there are just like additional grudges and little rivalries and things that I feel like you'll see begin to emerge that maybe weren't otherwise super well known. And I really do think the Pac-12 is very well positioned for that fifth highest conference champion spot to make a playoff case. So I think it's going to be a really fun league this year.
In the end, after being like slaughtered with everybody bolting to various conferences, the Big Ten and the ACC and the Big 12, in the end, could they have asked for anything better than where they are now, considering where they were 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah, I'm honestly not sure they could have. I think the only feasible way you could be in a better spot is if they got scooped up by the Big 12, but that very clearly wasn't going to happen, at least not in any world we live in. I know there's still some crazy guys on Twitter trying to start rumors, but that's clearly not going to be the case. I think this is obviously one of the best situations you could have stumbled into The only way you could argue it could be a little better is maybe if they got some American Conference defectors, if they were to convince like the Memphis and Tulanes and South Floridas of the world. But getting the best of the Mountain West the way they did, even getting a program like Texas State as well, I really think that they're in a pretty good spot, all things considered, where they were just, like you said, a couple of years ago.
So we had Big 12 Media Days a week ago, and there was obviously the Texas Tech story that was out there. It's just kind of evolving. It's less about Sorsby, and now it's more like the conference and the school trying to make amends and whatnot. But how has that, if at all, changed your outlook on the top of the league and the conference race and kind of what you expect? Where do you stand on that, and what do you think when you think of the Big 12 in 2026?
Well, the Big 12 is just super fascinating because it felt like immediately after the departure of Texas and Oklahoma, the league felt so wide open and so unpredictable. And then, of course, the elite investment of Texas Tech comes. And last year, it felt like the door was just shut. And it was Texas Tech and maybe BYU, but then you just watched the Red Raiders absolutely shellac them. And so it was like it's pretty much Texas Tech and then everybody else. And I think you can very easily make the case that so many other top contenders in the Big 12 this offseason got better. And then you hit Texas Tech with this Sorsby situation where I know a lot of people believe in Will Hammond. I think he's capable of being a good quarterback for them this season, but you can't hide the fact that the door certainly feels a lot more wide open this year in terms of teams that can test Texas Tech. Because, I mean, Kansas State had a lot of issues last year, and they've got an exciting new head coach in Colin Klein and a nice cast of players there. They're very talented. Arizona State, I think, could be better this year if they're able to stay healthier, even though they don't have a ton of continuity. You've got Colorado, who can't be worse than last year. Oklahoma State added all they've got. There's a lot of other schools that I think compelling. BYU's obviously still there. I think everyone believes Utah can be competitive, even without Whittingham, with Scally and all he brings to the table. So it is a really compelling league this year, just from the standpoint that I think the gap, if it's still there between Texas Tech and the field, it's at the very least a lot smaller than it was last year.
Besides the obvious answer, Arizona State plays at A&M. Baylor plays at Auburn in Atlanta, although both those teams don't know who the hell they are yet. And they'll find out, I guess, somewhat. I don't know when. And then you have that Notre Dame game in BYU, and there's a couple of others. How important would it to be win any of those three games moving forward, although all of them are going to be an incredibly difficult ask?
I mean, absolutely. Those are difficult asks. I think those could be a really big deal. And I mean, think to last year, Arizona State is the reigning Big 12 champions. They're one of the only Big 12 teams that was ranked heading into last year, and they lost that game to Mississippi State. And even with the early buzz Mississippi State had last year, a lot of people knew they would probably be a bottom quarter of the SEC. So you see what happens when you don't take care of business in those games. That one was obviously a bad loss, but those big games, those big opportunities, they can swing the other way. If Arizona State returns the favor and can beat a Texas A&M team, which, talking about returning production, the Aggies are actually relatively low, albeit extremely talented. Those games can absolutely swing the other way. So just like the Big 12's perception might have been wounded a little bit last non-conference season, they have an opportunity to return the favor this year. And I think that Baylor spot's a great opportunity. You've got Auburn with the first-year head coach. They've got excitement and buzz this year. You got to crack at them in week one. Colorado plays Georgia Tech too. That's another opportunity. So there are definitely those spots and those opportunities. And the great part of this sport is it can hurt you one way, but it can help you another next year.
So I was going through just doing some spring cleaning the other day, getting some things organized, and I came across the last 2 years of your magazine, your preview magazine. I know you've got the digital 2026 season preview that's up now. Didn't get to run into you at Big 12 Media Days this year, but in putting that together, which I know is, man, it's a huge endeavor, and there's a lot that comes with that. Maybe what were some things during the process that you felt like you learned, or some maybe notes of interest that you stumbled upon? Like, kind of give us the evolution of the preview and sort of what info came and spitting out on the other side for Budge.
Yeah, I mean, it's always such a fun journey putting it together, because I learn way more gathering all the information on the teams and figuring it out as I'm doing it. It's not like I have a formulated opinion going into it, because there's so much roster turnover that happens this year. So discovering the little things and having those little gold nuggets of like, hey, you know what? Delaware football might actually be really good this year in the CUSA, or looking at all the continuity a USC or an Oklahoma has this year, even looking back to last year and saying, is returning production as relevant a stat as we used to think it was? I think that's a very interesting conversation. And if you're talking like for broad stroke purposes, like a conversation, that to me is the single most interesting one, is talking about returning production. How do you calculate returning production in the transfer portal world, and how important is it? Because last season, I remember some of the biggest teams that you talked about that people were super excited about because of all they brought back. Penn State, Clemson, Arizona State. You're talking about a lot of teams that really severely underwhelmed. So reassessing those things, that's what I find really interesting. And I kind of nerd out about during the offseason, is trying to figure out like, how much should these numbers mean to us? Because there's still kind of an old way of thinking that I think happens sometimes, where you just assume a number like returning production should really matter.
Yeah. So what do you take, for example, if let's say a young man been playing at Miami of Ohio and he's now playing for Kansas State, do you, everything he's done, is that returning production, or is it like a percentage of that?
Exactly. I think the right way to balance it is to keep things in mind relative to the level they were playing at, where if you have a very productive player, let's say, his name's escaping me right now, Adam Trick. There you go. He's actually from Miami of Ohio, and he's at Texas Tech now. You take his production and you remember, he is in the MAC, and you might take a percentage of that. It might be 70% of his returning production counts towards Texas Tech. So I tend to rely more on the numbers that Bill Connolly's got at ESPN, because he has a really good advanced formula he's already on top of. But those are all things to take into account for sure.
So you put out your list of 16 teams that could win the national title in 2026. And there's a couple teams I saw in here that I'm side-eyeing a little bit. Like, I don't know about Florida. I think I saw somebody in your comments bring up, Michigan with Kyle Whittingham here in the first year. My first impression, though, is 16 teams that you think have a chance to win the title, man. That's not how college football operated just a few years ago. So for all of the hand-wringing, and obviously the greatest example of all time, last year's national champion Indiana, if they can do it, anybody can do it. But man, it is a wide open race now, more than ever before, is it not?
It absolutely is. And it is a super entertaining product for sure. And I think Indiana is part of the reason that list for me went to 16 this year. I think my list last year might have stopped at 10 or might have stopped at 11, and Indiana just missed the cut. I remember considering them, but then I was like, it would be so outrageous if the Hoosiers did this again. Like, they'll probably be really good. I remember having them preseason top 15 last year, which was a little bit of a hot take. They were like 21st in the AP poll or something like that to start the year. So what you're seeing with this list being a little bit longer, that's just me casting a wider net and trying not to get caught missing the national champion out of my group of teams, because then what's the point of the list? So I figured a team like Florida, where they only won 4 games last year, and they've got a first-year head coach, but it's the elite talent. It's the really good coaching staff. Texas Tech, maybe I would have left off last year because of the questions at quarterback, but now I say, why not? Maybe Will Hammond can do it. The defense is elite again. With Ole Miss, you're talking about a first-year head coach and some instability. You talked about Michigan as well, but because of Indiana's success and run, it just makes you open the door just a little bit more to some of those teams that you might have been skeptical of before. And of course, this new era of college football, it feels like it has opened the door for a lot of teams that otherwise might not have been able to make a run.
With what Indiana's done, and even the year before, they made the playoffs, got knocked out. Everyone goes, "Oh, see, they didn't deserve it." And they come back and they run the table and play one banger after another to close out the year. You have A&M at 13. They're a team and a program, Tyler, that is always this is their year. They recruit great. Elko's putting together an incredible class, and they've done a great job. They blew a tire. A lot of tension on Tech and Oregon, but A&M blew a tire against Miami at home as well. Are they ready, in your opinion? You have them on the list, but to take the next move and literally knock the door down?
Yeah, that is the question for Texas A&M. I do think that last year might have marked a little bit of the end, or maybe the start of the end, for battered Aggie syndrome, where you actually saw them deliver on some of the potential that was there. And you might call that a loss to Miami blowing a tire, but I think a lot of Aggies fans especially could see down the stretch, like, they weren't necessarily a team that was going to put together the 3 to 4 elite performances in the playoffs required to go on a deep run, because they had alarming signs. Against South Carolina, they had to have an insane comeback and win that game. And they had some close calls at the end of the year. They obviously get pushed around by a flawed Texas team to end the season as well. So there were certainly signs that it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Marcel Reed has to protect the football more. I keep talking about, when you're looking at the team and the returning production, the Aggies are relatively low in that department, but they are always so stocked full of talent. You talk about some of the staff turnover they had with Colin Klein leaving. He goes to Kansas State. And then, of course, he takes one of the co-defensive coordinators, Jordan Peterson, with him. So there's a little bit of turmoil, but these great programs, they continue to reload year after year. And that's all Elko has to prove this year. The reason they're a little bit further down the list is because it requires 1 to 2 more leaps in logic to be able to say they break down the door and they win the national title. It would include something like Marcel Reed takes a really big leap with a change at offensive coordinator. The defense is still really excellent. They have a few more guys step up on the defensive front to maintain that side of the ball. It just is a matter of how far you have to stretch the imagination to see it happening, because ultimately the reason we love this sport is because of the unpredictability. So that's still there. And I think in a perfect world, yeah, the Aggies could make a run.
All right. So Craig brought up the magazine. How, like, as soon as the season ends, when Indiana beat Miami for the national title, were you already working on the next year's magazine?
Yeah, I'm already templating out as soon as the year ends. Obviously, there's only so much you can do in terms of like what you're working with. There's almost so much turmoil immediately after the season in terms of coaching and player movement that you can only go so far on certain things. But I'm always templating out. I'm always thinking of how I want to structure things for the given year. And I'm not like a huge graphic design nut. I probably commit some cardinal sins in there, as is almost tradition for these types of preview mags. But I'm always thinking about it and ways to make it better. And then I really love when the portal settles down. And I even love more of the fact that there's no spring portal window this year. So I could really sink my teeth in and get stuff, written down and actually find out more about these teams, because the staffs and the rosters are actually settled.
You have a list, and I know you got to go. We appreciate your time. Top quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers in college football. And you have Ohio State, Miami, Texas. These are all the teams. Is there some? You have Oklahoma State at 7. Of course, all of that with the transfer, they are going to be really, really explosive on offense. Is there somebody on that list that you didn't realize would be on that list when you put it together, the top 10?
Yeah, that's a pretty good question. I think for me, it would probably be, Oklahoma State before the portal additions, obviously, but all those guys have such elite production that you do have to acknowledge that. I think Indiana reloading in the manner they did via the portal. You think, oh, well, they lost so much, then maybe they're due to regress. But then you look at Josh Hoover, who's coming in. You look at, they've got Turbo Richard, they went out and got from Boston College to be their running back. And then at receiver, Becker was playing like one of the best receivers in the country. They go land Andrew Marsh. That's the really compelling thing to me about Indiana, is they were already doing so much with not a great talent roster on paper last year, and now it's even better. You talk about the people that think Indiana might regress this year. They think the reason for that is because, well, he doesn't have any of his James Madison seniors anymore. And it's like, so he replaced the James Madison seniors with all conference players from the Big 10 and the Big 12 and the SEC. And you think that means Indiana's going to regress this year? So that's funny logic. Not pictured here is Utah. Utah's in a good spot. You've got Devin Dampier. You've got the running back, not Wayman Jordan, Wayshawn Parker is his name. And then Braden Pagan from Utah State. That was another one that's an honorable mention, just missed the list, that maybe I wouldn't necessarily have thought to be on the list.
Tyler, great job. Wonderful job. It's great to have you on. It's been too long. We don't need to do that. Next time I'll get in touch with you a lot easier. He also, if you want to go to his Twitter feed, CF_Budge, the 10 hot takes that get progressively hotter, part 2, and some really good stuff right there. We appreciate your time. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Tyler Budge with us on 365 Sports. One of those hot takes is Avery Johnson throws for 3,000 yards. Another one. Let's see here. It has Mississippi State logo. 0 SEC head coaches get fired this year. And they have Mississippi State with Lebby. I think Lebby's done a nice job there. Golly, the one game where they had Texas dead to rights and then just flat out choked in a way. I hate to use that word, but they did. And then also, Craig, we didn't bring this up much, but the EA Sports offline microtransactions, that there was a blowback on that. Is that correct?
Yeah, there was I don't really keep up with the video game, but it was impossible to not see that there was a big pushback on how EA was handling some of the way the game operated and things that you could unlock. And it was a big to-do, and a bunch of people who saw the tide started throwing their names into the hat, demanding that EA back off and this, that, and the other. You had some influencers that started to get themselves involved. So it created a pretty loud situation that EA eventually decided to, in fact, back away from that plan. And so people got what they wanted ultimately. I'm sure they'll try to do it again next year, or there will be something that, they do again that people will not like. But the people won. I mean, your voice matters. And certainly for their consumers, they tried to do one thing, and they were told pretty emphatically that the people that count on to buy these games are not going to play along. And so, they had to cut their losses, and I'm sure they'll try to sneak in something similar at some point or another, because that's what companies will do. But that was kind of refreshing to see that the consumer actually kind of got a victory of sorts with that whole deal.
It's good. And I saw a note from, I think it was from Outkick when they do their athletic.com about it's a win for the American sports fan, or in the case of video game fan. All right. The World Cup. Argentina came back and won today, beat England, 2 late goals to get 2-1. And they now will play, Spain, who yesterday, of course, beat France. There's one other note. I have this from Rez. It's the Spain statistics in the World Cup from Sam Block. It's one of the last tweets on the rundown. So look at, this is what Spain has done. Allowed no goals in 6 of their 7 games in the World Cup, including against France with Mbappe and that explosive offense. So they allowed a goal against Belgium, who's the one that knocked out the United States. And now they'll take on Argentina, who today beat England 2-1 after trailing for a long, long time, 1-0. All right, let's break here and come back with the wheel, the quizzes, the poll, and a couple of other nuggets. We appreciate your time. And this is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco. And I got a text just a minute ago from Ted Teague. And here are some of the specials that they have. And there's a bunch of them, too. Let me read off what I can from my cell phone. Make sure to make it it's called the Make It the Summer event sales at Alan Samuels. Need something that's easy on the wallet and gas? 2021 Kia Sorento with only 80,000 miles for just $17,000, or a 2024 Nissan Sentra, 60,000 miles, only $17,800. That's available. Fantastic payment vehicles. Also, the SUVs, 3 pre-owned Ford Escapes in stock. The all-new 2026 Jeep Cherokee delivering up to 37 miles per gallon. They have that in stock and ready to go. And then also a 2022 Ram 1500 Limited 4x4 Eco Diesel right now with 21 miles per gallon in the city, 29 miles per gallon on the highway. Make it the summer event. Alan Samuels, Ted Teague, the CEO and general manager. David Gray runs the sales department with a lot of great men and women that are there for you. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco.
Have you heard of the new IRA? The new IRA Insurance Retirement Advantage is the solution for high-income individuals and business owners who want to grow and protect their wealth without locking up capital or taking unnecessary risks. The new IRA Insurance Retirement Advantage is an option you need to know more about and is only available exclusively from North Star Funding Partners at northstarfundingpartners.com.
It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Make this the summer event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get behind the wheel of an iconic new Dodge Charger RT and score $5,000 in savings. First responders and military members get an extra $500 bonus. Allen Samuels Dodge.
Come by, let's be friends.
Hi, I'm Dana Hassel, President and CEO of American Bank. Waco is a great place for business, and for more than 70 years, American Bank has been the bank for business. We continue to invest in our growing community with state-of-the-art branches conveniently located to serve you within minutes. Our experienced bankers, lenders, and decision makers work directly with business owners like you every day, providing tailored solutions, timely answers, and local insights, face-to-face. Schedule a meeting with one of our bankers today and find out what makes American Bank the bank for your business. Member FDIC.
At Home Place Interiors, we elevate your space with elegance and class. We are the exclusive Sonoma tile dealer in Central Texas, bringing you the best in high-end floor coverings that transform your home with beauty and elegant design. Our white glove service and expert consultations ensure your vision becomes a reality as we take you step by step through the process. Call today to schedule your personal design consultation. Visit HomePlaceInteriorsTX.com. Home Place Interiors, crafting elegance, one room at a time.
This 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson and Brad Wilson in Waco, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe, with an individualized approach to addressing your financial needs, including education, savings, planning for retirement, and protection strategies. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, making sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. It's time for the Smoak Show on 365 Sports with Craig Smoak and David Smoak.
Before we get to the wheel, I mentioned Tarleton State University of one of our new sponsors. Get a purpose that transforms your life and inspires future generations through hands-on learning, real-world research. Students graduate ready to lead, serve, and make an impact built on access, opportunity, and affordability. Tarleton State gives every Texan the tools to succeed. They're made for you. Tarleton State at tarleton.edu. So we appreciate their new sponsorship to 365 Sports. Let's spin the wheel.
Growing up, did you ever play games with paper, like paper airplanes, paper footballs, fortune tellers, origami, trash basketball, etc.? Yeah, I played a mild amount of paper football, I guess as you'd refer to it. Shot more than a fair share of crumpled up pieces of paper into the trash bin, so that would count as well. Never was good with paper airplanes. Definitely never got into fortune telling, and wasn't good enough for origami either. So no, paper footballs and trash basketball. Yeah, I definitely took part in that.
I did the paper football all the time. Pretty good at it, but that was always. You think about where we came from when that was a big deal, and then all of a sudden they started doing all these video games and much more. The paper airplanes, I was okay with that. That was just something I did, but not very often. Not fortune tellers, origami, or trash basketball. Well, trash basketball around the office, but not really as a game. So, yes, we both did in certain ways. A couple of people in the chat, yes to all of the above. All right, here are the quizzes for today. In the first one, July 15th of 1973, Nolan Ryan struck out 17 batters for his second career no-hitter. He famously threw 7 total no-hitters, but which masterpiece was his only one against which team? This particular masterpiece in July of 1973.
Out of my wheelhouse.
I don't think the Blue Jays were around yet. Kansas City was, but they hadn't been around very long. And you know what? I don't know why I want to say this, but I want to say the Tigers. I have no idea, but I just, my gut feeling says the Tigers.
Yeah, I don't have any particular memory of his second no-hitter. Was not anywhere close to being born at this point. And while I do come across history, like the specifics of this second no-hitter, I have no memory of really bogging down on that.
I believe when he was with the Rangers, he threw the no-hitter. Wasn't it against the A's?
Yeah, that was like 91 or something like that.
I'm going to say the Tigers, and I don't know why. Let's see what the answer is. Tigers. Weird. Pitching for the California Angels, Ryan shut down Detroit 6-0, walking just 4, striking out a season-high 17. The Gem made him only the 4th pitcher in the live ball era to toss 2 no-hitters in the same season, fueling his legendary record-setting 383 strikeout season and campaign, and 36 votes, 28 of you got it right. We did.
Yeah, it's not a very good percentage, but yeah, it's kind of a random factoid that I don't know how many people are carrying that around. Maybe Nolan Ryan fans remember all the specifics of those 7 no-hitters, but it's always interesting to see a young Nolan in different uniforms. And remember when I first learned that he wasn't just always a Texas Ranger, that he was like 3 different things before that. Like, oh, he was a Met, he was an Angel, he's an Astro. I had no idea there for a time period. And then to learn that opened up like a whole new door to his career and how great he was over the course of it. So, yeah, always good to get a little tip of the cap to Nolan.
By the way, I mentioned the one against the A's in 1990. He no-hit the Blue Jays, the last one he had, the 7th one he had. And I want to think that nobody was no-hit twice in his career. But Detroit was in July of 73. Next quiz. Celebrating Twitter's new X launch anniversary today, which NBA superstar famously got caught using a burner account defending his roster moves online.
It's Kevin Durant. Yeah, he's the guy who's become known for being kind of petty on Twitter, for using burners on Twitter, for getting caught using a burner. Just couldn't help himself arguing with fans on more than one occasion. So, yeah, I see LeBron tweet from time to time. I don't know about Kyrie or Harden. I'm not a Harden guy in any way, really. I don't know if it was when he's with the Rockets. I just grew to dislike him, but I don't care too much about James Harden. Great player, though. Kyrie, I feel like I maybe see something, but maybe that's crossover from Instagram. I don't know, but I definitely know that I see LeBron on there occasionally, or did in the past, and Kevin Durant, though, that's an easy answer right here.
All right, so Kevin Durant, let's see what the answer is.
Yep, launched 20 years ago today. Wow, that's wild. Twitter has seen plenty of iconic athlete moments, none top 2017 when Kevin Durant forgot to switch accounts and accidentally defended himself from his main profile. Burner drama resurfaced in early 2026 when Get Higher 77 went viral for blasting his teammates, proving it never truly dies. So, yeah, KD can't help himself and being one of the fans on Twitter. But, yeah, he slipped up, and I've seen others do that as well. It's amazing how the burners can. I know some of it's just for trolling and everything, but I remember seeing a current media guy. It wouldn't be any surprise to anybody that he would do this, but said something or pissed somebody off and got caught in the crosshairs. The next thing you know, here's this army of brand new, freshly created accounts that are defending this guy. It was like, if it was April, it was like created April 2026, and it's the first ever tweets just like randomly popping on to defend this guy. And then I guarantee if you go back and look now, they haven't tweeted since then. But there was like 3 just made in this month alone Twitter accounts that had never tweeted before that suddenly appeared out of thin air and were on this guy's side in his battle with this fan that was calling him out. It's just, yeah, burners are wild. They can be pretty entertaining, but it also can be pretty cowardly too, the way some people use them.
I agree with that. I think the Twitter, you already could be somebody that's a badass because you're on some keyboard or message board or whatever Twitter, but to have a burner account, some of them can get nasty and mean. There's like we mentioned yesterday with one of our guests, Mike Shadron, they have the faux whatever, like Pellini, which is great, and a couple of other accounts. I think those are funny, but the burner accounts, no, I don't like them.
Yeah, those are just like it's almost like a mockumentary type of a thing with those accounts. It's what's the phrase for it? It's satire. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. You're labeling yourself as satire. You're not trying to really be that person. I just take issue with those that cross lines they would never cross in person. And I don't know, like, I can understand wanting to mess with people, but it's one thing to like troll somebody and like just annoy them or piss them off for a second because you're joking. It's another thing entirely to like call out their family and to like make accusations and then to just hide. I just think it's so gutless. Like, I think that no matter how tough somebody is trying to portray themselves behind that burner account, to me, it just comes across as gutless. But yeah, there's need for it. In some cases, just people don't want to have their info out there or their name out there. But the anonymity does bother me when people try to go cross lines that they weren't going to cross otherwise. That's, have fun with it. We don't need to know who everybody is because you don't want, your workplace monitoring everything you said. But when you go and you try to like intentionally hurt people or be nasty towards people, I don't think you come across as cool or tough or however you see it in your mind. I think you come across as absolutely 100% gutless. So yeah, that's my ebb and flow with Twitter. Sometimes it's hilarity and it's Freddie doing the World Cup, and then other times it's just the worst people you've ever come across in your life, and you really hope they're bots and not actual people. But I think it's probably 50-50.
By the way, I agree. The Twitter can be tough enough as it is. I've learned to just, if you don't like somebody.
I just don't know how so many anonymous people are so tough and badass. like they're anonymously just so tough and badass, and you just know that on the other side, that's just simply not the case. Therefore, the anonymity, but whatever.
All right. Kyle asked me about how many pitches Nolan Ryan threw in that no-hitter. I'm looking that up. I went to a normal box score and it didn't have it. All right, let's get to the poll results from today. One of them was pretty cool. And both of them might be pretty cool. Should Conor McGregor fight again in the UFC?
I'm surprised to see there's still 34% that say yes. I mean, he only has one fight, so by putting the contract part on there, I could see where you'd vote for that, because you do want him to just go ahead and be done with the UFC and go do whatever other venture, bare knuckle fighting championships or celebrity Netflix boxing with the Paul brothers or whatever else he might have up his sleeve. But as far as just like forget the contract, is he worth all of the hype and pomp and circumstance? No, very clearly not. His last two fights, he couldn't even finish due to injuries. He looked slow and haggard getting into the octagon, which only added more fuel to the fire, along with the hobbling, getting into the octagon that maybe he was hurt previously. Now, they've denied that, said that's not the case. Yeah, he's seen better days, and I just don't think that he is worth the price of admission anymore. But you know what? If he fights again, it'll still probably be more watched than any other pay-per-view they do the rest of that year. Even if he gets hurt for a third time in a row, he'll still have plenty of people that want to watch. So as long as people want to watch, there's going to be a demand for him. But for me personally, used to be a huge fan of his. Yeah, I think it's time to retire. Yeah, the UFC thing's just he's not that guy anymore.
Should he? Yes. Will he? Probably, because of the money. That was a waste of my damn time. I stayed up to watch it. We mentioned that yesterday, and it just kind of I was like, ugh. All right, let's go to the last one. I think this is about the hot dogs, and it is. It's National Hot Dog Day, Joey Chestnut Day. What is the single most elite hot dog condiment? This can't even be. This is to me should be like 100%. But Craig, which one would you? Mustard wins it slightly over chili and cheese.
I'd have chili and cheese. I don't care for the critics that say that you can't put ketchup on a hot dog. I will, and I'll do it right in front of you. And I'm not trying to be anonymous Twitter badass. I've had people get weirdly angry about ketchup on a hot dog to the point where now it just makes me, like a troll, want to just put ketchup on a hot dog just to simply do it in front of them. But no, I don't mind ketchup on a hot dog. I don't slather it though. It's like just a little line. Yep. It's not like I'm drowning it in ketchup. So I disagree on that stance. But if I had to have one of these, yeah, it would be chili and cheese for sure. I don't ever do the just mustard on a hot dog. I like mustard on some stuff, like in a burger with other things. It's cool. I don't really like it standing alone with only one other thing. So I don't really like just the mustard on a hot dog, and I don't do relish or onions at all.
Yeah,
so,
the relish and onions
chili
very
and cheese.
rarely. I'll put like a sliced pickle on a hamburger, but not a hot dog. Chili and cheese, again, takes me back to where I used to all the time when I did junior college basketball, drove by what's it was called, Craig? It was der Wiener Schnitzel.
Something like that, yeah.
Their hot dog in the bun and chili and cheese combination, I would eat 4 or 5 of them. I'm not kidding. It was bad. I loved it. But no, mustard's the number one, chili and cheese just behind him at 35%. Well done, Andrew. Thank you very much. Mustard wins that one. All right, Rez, thank you very much. Cheyenne, who helped run the mothership. Carlos was here today. Garrett was here. Andrew and also Logan Bagessi, as they work on a lot of things that we do. And Super chat. Excuse me. Let's go to a super chat. Thank you, Rez, very much. And super chat from your pet again. Cat again. I will reveal my Orange Bowl division of the East Conference on my league based on having a natty since 1945. Oh, he wants to do the super conference, but you have to have a national title at least since 1945. I place teams based on connection to the Big Bowl, then geography, Nebraska, Oklahoma, for example. In the Orange Bowl division, Cotton will come up on Monday.
Okay, well, that's a very generous super chat, your pet cat again. So
Absolutely.
Definitely appreciate that. Yeah, can't thank you enough for that. And I like the idea of doing the divisions based on the traditional bowls or like part of like your conference sort of setup there. I do like that idea. I think that's something that may well get adopted in the future if they don't name it after like the Saban division or something like that. Yeah, doing the old bowls is not a bad idea. And cool. I mean, it sounds like it's a fun exercise. My only thing with the national titles is just like you'd leave Oregon out. And while I think that's a school obviously that doesn't have a natty, like that's impossible to not have them in an arrangement now. Like as a current modern day arrangement, they are going to be top 5 in the preseason polls again. Very well, maybe the natty champ this year. I mean, they have the studs and they have the confidence and the belief that they're going to have a really good team. So yeah, that would just be the one thing is I just don't see a scenario where if this were put into practice, Oregon's not in a super league. But based on your identifiers there, then yeah, they'd be left out. So I'll look forward to seeing how that takes shape. I just think that would be the part that would probably not translate to the real world.
It would eliminate A&M too.
Yeah,
the last one they had was in 1939, and they're
right.
No matter what, they are one of the big boy programs right now. They just got to go do it and do it more and do it, sustain it into the end of the year.
But I like where your head's at, and it sounds like a fun exercise. And so cool, man. We'll be checking that out, and really appreciate you as always.
Do we have more than one or just the one? Here's another one. Your pet cat again. Barn Cat, the Kansas State fan, will only approve of my league if teams like Oregon, Texas Tech could get in by winning a natty. I agree to this. Okay, well, then he agrees to what you were talking about.
Yeah, that they need a natty to get in. So, I mean, yeah, that's not a bad barometer. So we're doing fantasy booking here. So, yeah, that's your league and how it would work. More props to you. I think the real world with the TV networks would absolutely have Oregon and Texas A&M and Texas Tech. I think would be a really interesting case study on kind of how they would be viewed for something like a super league that's not just smashing teams together, but having some thought and some reason behind it. Texas Tech would be kind of teetering on that admissions line. But you make it pretty clear with that natty rule that, yeah, they wouldn't be in, nor would Oregon, nor would A&M. So, yeah, like where your head's at.
I'm sure there's maybe 2 to 3 or 5 others that would not be a part of it based on those particular guidelines. So there we are, super chat. And Kim Coulter, well, by God, I don't know what that's about. Maybe a comment about Tech or not a comment about, or they didn't get included. Thank you, Kim, for that as well. All right, Joey Foster, let's go Mountaineers. Cue Country Roads with the flame emoji. And you're right, Joey. Man, what a run it's been. And it still is for West Virginia. It turned out to be like the national anthem, so to speak, for sports at the World Cup and more.
Yeah, it did. So thanks for the chat, Joey, as always. I think there's a lot of excitement building up for West Virginia football. Really glad to see Coos last week and getting to watch him interview Rich Rod amongst some of the players and stuff was pretty cool. So, yeah, there's a lot of hope building. I know that nobody's talking natty or anything like that, but certainly being far more competitive and at least being in the mix to some degree. I think they're a really interesting team. And I think, too, there's a lot of pressure because you can't go into 2027 saying, well, we'll just go get 65 new players again. It's like you've done that for 2 years. You got to start putting out some results. So, yeah, big year upcoming for the ears, and we'll be talking all about it.
All right, Joey, great. And by the way, good to hear from you when we were at Big 12 Media Days as we talk West Virginia coverage and coups and more. Thank you, Raz. And I mentioned everybody, retired stockbroker. What was that guy, our official 1-in-1 day done in the chat? He's referring to Joe, who got into it with a handful of people, and it's like fire ants. I did not see the beginning of it, but they started going at each other, and then I said, hey, email me, let's get through it. And he goes, if you're so sensitive about me saying STFU, so then he got into me. So, we didn't see him again. It's a wild thing, Craig. You don't get in the chat, you're smart.
I mean, and every time you give me a reason, an example, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what
I always pass along when you're invited into it or somebody makes a comment. But yeah, it can get off the rails. All right, here we go. Tomorrow, back at it again, and we do appreciate you, Craig. See you tomorrow. Thank you again for what you do, the time you give us every day. 365 Sports, the Smoke Show on YouTube. Good night.